The school day concluded, and the familiar chime of the bell echoed across the sprawling residential area. A voice called out, "Hey Naoto." He turned to face his friends, who questioned his sudden rush to leave. One friend suggested they play football, but Naoto quickly declined, stating he would pass today. His friends noted his recent habit of going straight home after school, a stark contrast to his usual late-night play. He simply told them to buzz off, leaving them to ponder his change in behavior. Naoto continued his walk through the neighborhood, passing a bustling playground filled with other children, but his gaze remained distant, focused only on his destination. As he walked, a sense of unease settled over him, and he wondered if everything would be fine today. His reflection in a window seemed to mirror his apprehension. Upon reaching his apartment building, he heard the distinct sound of items being moved, a clink and a clang echoing from within. He paused, noticing a woman speaking to someone at a counter, her back mostly turned to him. He then noticed an older girl, Naru, standing on the balcony of an adjacent apartment, signing for a delivery from a man in a uniform. His eyes widened in shock as a sudden realization dawned on him. She was moving into the room right next to his. The realization struck him with full force, his face flushing with surprise as he recognized her. "Isn't that the lady from that time?" he thought, his mind racing. He stood in disbelief as Naru, his new next-door neighbor, expressed her own surprise at the unexpected coincidence. She had never imagined the place she would move into would be right next to his, and he, still processing the revelation, could only confirm that, yes, her house was indeed right next to his. As she offered a warm smile, he averted his gaze, a blush creeping onto his cheeks. She then called out to him, and he responded with a hesitant sound, still seemingly overwhelmed by the situation. His thoughts then drifted, recalling a memory from the school grounds where he had just hit a baseball. With a resounding thought, his friends cheered, grateful for his skill, acknowledging that he had saved them once again. His friends continued to praise him, noting his talent not only in baseball but also in football, and urged him to join a club. He seemed hesitant, offering a non-committal sound, while one friend playfully warned him not to get too serious, and another told him to go easy on them. The conversation shifted as one friend suddenly remembered they had cram school, and another mentioned their club. His friends then began to discuss how everyone had their own circumstances, a vague explanation that left him wondering. Later, as they walked, he inquired about the circumstances his friend had mentioned earlier. His friend responded with a casual, "Oh, that," before they eventually parted ways, leaving him to ponder the meaning. As he walked home alone, the voice of his friend echoed in his mind, revealing the truth: his family was dirt poor. He acknowledged this with a quiet understanding, the weight of the reality settling upon him. Back in the present, he walked, contemplating the idea of joining a club. He yearned to be part of one, but the realization that it would require a significant amount of money made it seem impossible. Suddenly, a hand violently grabbed his arm, startling him completely. A large, masked adult, panting heavily, pulled at him, demanding to be shown the way. He cried out in pain and confusion, struggling against the stranger's grip as he was forcibly dragged. The masked figure continued to pull him, insisting he show them the way to the elementary school. He cried out again, pleading for the stranger to let go, his voice filled with anguish. He was being pulled forcefully by the masked adult, who commanded him to come closer. A wave of dread washed over him as he realized the masked figure intended to drag him into the shadows. He tried to cry out for help, but fear choked his voice. Suddenly, the masked adult began to convulse, electricity crackling around his head and neck. He twitched violently, then collapsed to the ground, leaving Naoto stunned and confused. The large figure crumpled entirely, falling silent and still. Naoto, startled by the sudden turn of events, stumbled backward and fell, his heart pounding. He gasped, a jolt of terror running through him. He knew he needed to flee, but his legs felt like lead, refusing to obey his desperate command to move. Just then, a familiar voice cut through his panic. Naru stood before him, her expression one of concern, asking if he was all right. He looked up, surprised by her sudden appearance. She quickly bent down and lifted him, remarking on how light he was. He insisted he was unharmed and asked her to put him down. She then suggested they leave the unconscious person behind, turning to walk away. As they walked away from the prone figure, Neru dismissed the incident, declaring it was fine to abandon the perv and get out of the area. She then turned to him, her expression serious, and warned him to be cautious around this time of day, explaining that predators often targeted children walking alone. He questioned if predators only pursued girls, to which she clarified that some also went after boys. He acknowledged the frightening reality of her words. Neru then leaned in, a playful glint in her eye, and told him that predators would surely target him because he was so cute. His face flushed with a blush. She then leaned in, whispering that, if anything, he was the one who was super pretty and needed to be careful. He, slightly flustered, asked if she had said something, but she quickly dismissed it as nothing. As they continued their walk, Naoto pointed to a massive structure, exclaiming his surprise at its size. Neru confirmed it was her apartment building. He then bowed deeply, expressing his profound gratitude for her saving him. She acknowledged his thanks with a simple, She responded with a soft sigh, a faint blush gracing her cheeks as a pleased smile touched her lips. Patting his head gently, she reiterated her warning for him to be careful when coming home late. He quietly agreed, and she, glad for his safety, assured him it was no trouble at all. As he walked away, he glanced back, catching her gaze. She watched him go, a subtle, knowing smile playing on her lips. Upon arriving at his own building, Naoto found the entrance surprisingly dirty. He called out, but no one answered, confirming the apartment was empty. He then realized something was missing, and, knowing its hiding spot, pulled a hidden item from beneath his bed. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed from above, startling him. He cried out in surprise as the sound reverberated through the building. After getting a glass of water, he sat down, reflecting on the recurring thumping noises from the apartment above. He wondered if the lady who had just saved him lived somewhere nearby. The building itself was a massive, calm residential structure, boasting 400 units across 11 floors. It was conveniently located, only a 5-minute walk from a station and near a shopping district. The first 3 floors featured balconies, while the upper floors were designed specifically for families. However, the public order in the area was poor, leading to complaints about noisy foreign residents and a plummet in property prices. Despite this, a school and a park were within a kilometer, and many children attending that school resided in the building. Neru, with a thoughtful gaze, observed the image of an apartment building on her tablet, noting its seemingly perfect design. Meanwhile, a different woman, with flowing light hair and sharp, calculating eyes, contemplated the same building, musing on how easily one could gain entry. Moments later, Neru stood at Naoto's door, a cake in hand, explaining she had bought it to celebrate her move and wished to share it with him. Naoto, taken aback, confirmed he had returned home earlier than usual. She teased him, calling him a good boy, which made him blush. Neru then admitted her new apartment was still somewhat unkempt, but he quickly dismissed her concerns. Her expression softening, Neru confessed that celebrating alone would be a lonely affair and hoped he would join her. Naoto, his heart thumping, readily accepted her offer, and she, delighted, invited him in, offering a polite apology for the intrusion. Upon entering Neru's apartment, Naoto stumbled, crying out in astonishment at how much tidier her living space appeared compared to his own. Neru, with a slight smile, reminded him of her earlier warning about the mess. In his surprise, he accidentally pressed his face against her chest, eliciting a startled gasp from her. His face burning with embarrassment, he quickly stammered an apology and attempted to distance himself, acutely aware of the softness he had just encountered. He then cast his gaze downwards at his feet, noticing his socks, before covering his face in utter mortification. Having regained her composure, Neru thanked him for his patience and directed him to sit properly on the sofa while she went to fetch the cake. He assented, taking a seat on the couch. She soon returned, presenting him with a slice of cake and a drink. His eyes widened in delight as he found the cake incredibly delicious. Naru smiled, clearly pleased by his enthusiastic reaction. As he continued to savor the treat, she gently touched his face, indicating a smudge of cream on his cheek and tenderly wiping it clean. Seated side by side on the sofa, Naru expressed her disbelief at his close proximity, still unable to fully grasp that he had moved in right next door. She then voiced her sincere gratitude for him becoming her new neighbor. Naoto, equally pleased, reciprocated the sentiment and revealed his satisfaction that the old man, who previously occupied her apartment, known for constantly banging on the door, had been kicked out. He considered the options as Naruko, his new neighbor, offered him a choice of orange or apple juice. He decided on orange juice. Naruko then explained that since she had just moved in, she hoped he could teach her everything she needed to know about the neighborhood. He pondered her request, a slight confusion on his face. As they sat together, a sudden realization struck him, and he turned to her, asking if he had even told her his name yet. She smiled warmly, acknowledging that she had yet to introduce herself properly. With a cheerful demeanor, she revealed, "My name is Naruko." He responded with a simple, is that so?" Naruko then looked at him, her smile unwavering, and expressed her happiness to be his neighbor. Moments later, she reached down beside her, her fingers searching for something. With a soft thump, she found it. What she retrieved was a small, crudely stitched doll, with button eyes and a simple stitched mouth, bearing a striking resemblance to Naoto. Her hands carefully held the doll, a needle and thread poised, as if she were in the midst of working on it. She continued to cradle the doll, her expression focused on the small, handmade figure. Then, with a sudden burst of affection, Naruko pulled the doll close, hugging it tightly, and exclaiming that Naoto was adorable. He watched her, utterly bewildered by her actions. The morning began with the insistent ringing of an alarm, pulling someone from a deep slumber. Outside, birds chirped, signaling the start of a new day over the city's towering buildings. Soon after, a young woman began her morning routine, stretching and brushing her teeth before styling her long, dark hair. She prepared herself for the day ahead. As she finished, she looked at her reflection, holding a small doll, and wished for another good day. She then gently patted the doll's head, affectionately calling it now. Meanwhile, at school, a young boy named Koji was approached by his friends. One girl reminded him of an upcoming match and the need to practice hard, while another invited him to play in the schoolyard. He, however, declined, explaining he wouldn't be able to join them for a while. As his friends departed, one of them remarked on his regular early departure. Later, as Koji walked home, he encountered the young woman from earlier, Naoko, who greeted him, noting his early return. She mentioned she was thinking of checking the nearby area. Koji explained that his friend was swamped with club activities and couldn't play. Naoko then asked if he could show her around town, admitting she didn't know much about it. He hesitated, suggesting she didn't need to worry about entertaining her, but she insisted, wanting to know the places he usually frequented. She reiterated her desire to know the places he usually went, her expression hopeful. He considered her request for a moment before pointing towards a specific direction, asking if she wanted to go there. Following his lead, they soon arrived at a vast park, bustling with children playing on various structures. Naoko, observing the lively scene, expressed her surprise at the park size and the abundance of playground equipment. She then confessed to Koji that she had never actually played in a big park before, a revelation that clearly astonished him. He, still processing her admission, asked how she used to play then, and she, in turn, inquired if he had any recommended playground equipment. She then pointed out a particular structure, noting it was a big hit with the other children. Koji, seeing Naoko struggle on the monkey bars, quickly moved to cover her as she lost her grip and fell. She landed with a soft thud, clutching her stomach, surprised by the unexpected difficulty. He immediately checked on her, asking if she was hurt, using the name now. She seemed confused by the name, asking, me? After her unexpected fall, he pondered other recommendations for playground equipment. She admitted the monkey bars had been surprisingly thrilling, confessing she had underestimated the challenge, thinking it was just for children. He then suggested they try the swing, noting it was the most popular attraction. She inquired if both of them. He explained that they could, if she sat between his legs. As they settled onto the swing, he instructed her to try and match his rhythm as he began to swing. She understood the instruction, but a blush crept onto her face as she felt the close proximity of their bodies. He expressed concern, warning her that it might be dangerous if she didn't hold on tightly, worried she might fall. She, however, was distracted by their closeness, commenting on how soft his stomach felt against her. The swing chains creaked under their combined weight. The swing began to rattle as they gained momentum, causing her eyes to widen in surprise. She let out a delighted "oh" as the swing continued its arc, her expression shifting to pure enjoyment. They soared high into the air, and she exclaimed how incredible and fun it was. He looked back at her, asking if she truly liked it that much. He let out a heavy sigh, admitting that swinging with two people was tiring and felt heavy. Her joyful expression instantly turned to shock at his blunt assessment. She sat on the swing, her expression heavy with gloom, as Koji, noticing her fatigue, asked if she was tired. She silently acknowledged her own perceived weight. Moments later, Koji stood before the monkey bars, confidently asking Naoko if she could perform a pullover. He then demonstrated the maneuver with ease, prompting her to exclaim in surprise and admiration. He chuckled at her astonishment, remarking on her surprise at his skill. He then turned to her, suggesting she attempt the pullover herself. Though she wondered if she could manage it, she resolved to give it a try. As she gripped the bar, her body strained with effort. She grunted and twitched, pulling with all her might, but her legs remained stubbornly on the ground, refusing to lift. Her continued struggle caused her skirt to ride high, revealing her underwear. Koji, flustered by the sight, quickly realized her predicament. Meanwhile, two other children nearby also noticed, prompting Koji to decide he needed to cover her. He quickly crouched beneath her, attempting to push her legs down to conceal her modesty. He urged her to lower her legs, explaining that her underwear would continue to show otherwise. Confused, she asked what he meant by push. As he continued to push, she claimed she was almost all right, though he still wondered what method would truly work. Suddenly, her grip failed, and she tumbled down, landing directly on top of him, with a heavy impact. She lay sprawled across him, apologizing for the unexpected fall. Beneath her, he reassured her that everything was fine, despite the awkward position. After recovering from the tumble, she proposed they conquer all the playground equipment. He readily agreed, finding the idea enjoyable. With their new goal in mind, they moved from one piece of equipment to the next, riding the seesaw, navigating the climbing dome, and swinging together on the tire swing. He even helped her ascend the monkey bars once more, concluding their playful conquest with a confident wink. He stretched his arm high, a wide smile on his face, declaring that he had blasted during their time together. Still, the day's activities had taken their toll. Naoko, feeling tired but content, suggested they take a quick break and asked if there were any benches nearby. He confidently replied that he knew some good spots where they usually rested. She inquired about the location, and he pointed towards a specific spot. Her gaze followed his finger to a large, organic-shaped structure, a peculiar playground fixture where several children were already playing. She expressed surprise at the sight. As Naoko attempted to enter one of its openings, she quickly realized the structure was hollow inside. She found herself stuck, her rear protruding from the entrance, and complained about how cramped it was. He simply confirmed her observation. Once they managed to settle inside the peculiar structure, Naoko asked Koji if he often rested in this spot. He replied that he did quite a lot. Without a word, his hand reached out, gently touching hers. A blush crept onto his cheeks, and his eyes widened in a moment of startled realization. Naoko, seemingly oblivious to the subtle gesture, then asked if he was fond of this particular spot. He quickly turned his head away, still blushing, and denied any particular fondness. She then inquired why he didn't go home. He explained that it was boring at home, and when it was past evening, there were few places he could get into, implying he often stayed out. He listened intently, as Naoko mused about their current location, remarking that despite its extreme temperatures, scorching in summer and freezing in winter, the place felt right to her. She then turned to him, suggesting he come to her house next time they played. Koji, surprised, hesitated, explaining that he felt he had imposed on her the other day and couldn't keep coming over all the time. Naoko quickly reassured him, dismissing his concerns. Still, he looked down, a faint blush on his cheeks, as Naoko continued her persuasion. She added that her house was cool in the summer and warm in the winter, certain he would enjoy it. She pressed on, promising to cook any dish he liked, not just sweets, and mentioned having games, including the football video games he enjoyed. Finally convinced, Koji agreed to her offer, making a firm promise to visit. Naoko beamed, her expression one of triumph. Moments later, they walked through a bustling shopping district, the sounds of a scooter and car horns filling the air. Naoko observed the surroundings, noting the presence of a large shopping area. As they continued, he pointed towards a building, beginning to explain that it was a pachinko store his mother frequently visited, but then abruptly stopped himself, leaving Naoko curious. Suddenly, a loud growl emanated from his stomach, startling him. Naoko looked at him, her expression one of mild surprise. Noticing his hunger, she suggested they find a place for lunch, offering to treat him as a thank you for showing her around. He reacted with a surprised exclamation. Without waiting for a full response, she gently grabbed his hand, urging him and to come along. He protested softly, insisting she didn't need to go to such lengths. As they walked hand in hand, they passed the very pachinko store Koji had mentioned earlier. Naoko glanced back at the establishment, a thoughtful expression on her face. As she continued to cook, holding Koji's hand, a question arose about Naoto. Meanwhile, a woman with long, light-colored hair, her eyes obscured by shadow, glared intensely, demanding to know the identity of the other woman. Koji, a young boy, sat across from Naoko in a restaurant, a menu spread between them. He expressed a heartfelt wish for their enjoyable time together to last forever. This marked the beginning of Chapter 3. Later, a hand fumbled with keys at a door, the metallic rattle echoing in the quiet night. Outside, a figure descended a fire escape, the clatter of their steps breaking the silence as they moved away from the darkened building. The figure, Koji's mother, entered her own apartment, a disheveled space filled with trash bags. She muttered in frustration about having wasted valuable time on her pachinko's day. With a sigh, she slumped to the floor amidst the clutter, before making her way into Koji's room. She stood over Koji, who lay in his bed, and confronted him directly, asking if he had been at a lunch restaurant earlier that day. His mother insisted she had witnessed him there with her own eyes. Koji, still in bed, questioned where she could have possibly gotten such an idea. A flashback then revealed Koji and Naoko enjoying their meal, with his mother observing them from a distance. She reiterated that he had been enjoying a meal with some woman she did not know. She pressed him further, demanding to know the woman's identity, her voice rising as she explained that seeing him eat delicious food after she had lost a significant amount of money on pachinko had infuriated her. Koji clenched his fist, challenging her, asking why it mattered to her who the woman was. She retorted that it pissed her off so much. Leaning over him, her face contorted in a furious grimace, she reminded him sharply that she was his mother. Koji, visibly sweating and distressed, was commanded to out with it. He internally acknowledged that the situation hella matters to him. His mother then inquired if the woman was the neighbor living next door. Koji confirmed she was, but quickly added that she had moved out a while ago. Hearing this, his mother began to scrub his head, declaring the neighbor a pain in the ass, and proclaiming this to be Koji's second stroke of luck. Koji, bewildered, questioned what she meant by a second stroke of luck. With a cigarette held delicately between her fingers, Koji's mother leans in close to him, her eyes shadowed and intense. She tells him directly that she has found herself another mark. She continues, urging him to exploit the woman's fondness for him to extract more money. Koji, looking distressed, questions her use of the word mark, but she dismisses his concern, telling him not to play dumb. She exhales smoke, explaining that this new situation could be her third stroke of luck, or perhaps even more. She paints a picture of a future where Koji would get delicious food, easing their financial burden, seeing only the bright sides. Outside, birds chirp in the morning light, but inside, Koji's hand clenches tightly on the bedsheets, his mind rejecting his mother's proposition as absolutely out of the question. The next morning, Koji, dressed in his school uniform and backpack, greets Naoko, who stands by the door. She returns his greeting, then announces she is heading out. Meanwhile, Koji's mother lies on the floor, surrounded by scattered items, seemingly unconscious or passed out. Naoko, turning to leave, thanks Koji for treating her yesterday, assuring him it was her way of showing gratitude, and he shouldn't worry about it. Koji, however, seems to recall his mother's earlier words, a troubled expression on his face as he looks at Naoko. He promises to treat her next time, though he admits he cannot afford it now. Naoko smiles warmly at his sincerity. She thanks him, looking forward to it, as Koji looks up at her with a hopeful expression. As Koji and Naoko continue their conversation, Koji's mother, now awake and standing, watches Naoko from the doorway, dismissing her as a bumpkin girl, but content that she will take care of Naoto. She bids Naoko farewell. Naoko, however, turns back, her expression suddenly dark and intense, a chilling smile playing on her lips, as Koji's mother recoils slightly, a bead of sweat forming on her brow. Koji's mother, visibly shaken, leans against the doorframe, her hand twitching. She shivers, realizing that Naoko's sudden shift in demeanor was incredibly creepy. Koji recounted his recent experience to his classmates, male child 1 and female child 1, explaining that he had a difficult time choosing his meal because everything looked so delicious, including the desserts. Male child 1, however, interrupted him, asking him to pause. Following his friend's question, male child 1 then asked Koji if he had never been to a lunch restaurant before, a question that left Koji looking utterly surprised. Stunned by their revelation, Koji, with wide eyes, asked if his friends had been to such a place. They confirmed they had, implying that he was the only one among them who hadn't experienced a lunch restaurant. Later, Koji found himself at a restaurant with Naoko, marveling at the menu filled with various tempting dishes. Naoko, with a warm smile, recommended the cheeseburger set and assured him he could order anything he desired. Soon after, their cheeseburger set arrived, looking incredibly appetizing. As the meal began, Koji nervously handled his fork and knife, his eyes wide with excitement, as the sizzling cheeseburger was placed before him. Naoko, noticing his hesitation, offered to cut it for him, which he shyly accepted. The gentle clinking of cutlery only heightened his nervous anticipation. After she finished cutting, Naoko presented a perfectly portioned piece to Koji, who was amazed by her skill. She then playfully offered him a bite, instructing him to open wide. Koji protested, insisting he could eat by himself, but she playfully insisted he take the bite from her. He reluctantly accepted the bite from Naoko, his cheeks puffing out as he chewed. He admitted he couldn't discern the taste much, but Naoko, with a knowing glance, asked if it was good, to which he confirmed it was. Then, she declared it was her turn, holding out a piece for herself, making Koji gulp nervously. After her turn, Naoko, with a wide, satisfied smile, took a bite of the food Koji offered her. He eagerly asked her how it was, and she responded with a thumbs up, confirming it was very good. With the main course finished, Koji expressed surprise when Naoko suggested they have sweets, like a parfait, after their meal. He felt a pang of guilt, but she reassured him it was perfectly fine. As they enjoyed their desserts, a new voice suddenly announced, "Good morning, everyone. causing Koji to gasp and rattle his spoon in surprise. The next morning, back in the classroom, Koji, male child 1, and female child 1 were still discussing his restaurant outing. Koji agreed to tell them the rest of his story later. Their teacher, a woman with short, dark hair, then announced she was about to take attendance and instructed everyone to take their seats, to which Koji quickly acknowledged her. He stood before his teacher, who informed him that his mother was the sole parent yet to sign the consent form for the upcoming field trip. She added that she had already noted this in the correspondence notebook. The teacher then handed him the form, instructing him to ensure back in the classroom, his classmates speculated that his mother would not come, prompting another student to tell them to drop the subject. Meanwhile, the teacher, with a gentle smile, explained to him that she had also included a notification for Parents' Day, urging him to give that to his mother as well. He clenched his fist, a silent reaction to the conversation. Later, as he walked home with his friends, they pressed him, asking if it was truly happening, if his mother really wouldn't come. He responded with a quiet, somber yes. Upon his arrival home, the sound of his footsteps echoed, and Naoko, from within the house, noticed his return. She watched him ascend the stairs, her gaze following him as he walked down the hallway, his small figure moving away. He clutched the crumpled form tightly in his hand, his face etched with a deep, unspoken worry. As he reached his door, Naoko opened it, greeting him warmly by name. He, startled by her sudden appearance, thanked her. He looked up at her, his expression twitching with surprise and a hint of distress, asking what she meant. She simply observed him, a silent question in her eyes. Naoko told him he seemed down and offered for him to talk to her, if something was on his mind. He, however, thought to himself that there was no use telling her, and then slipped past her into the room. He was asked by his mother to take out the trash, who complained about the room's smell. He simply stated he was leaving, ignoring her call as he walked away. As he began to gather the overflowing bags, he noticed the accumulated refuse scattered across the floor. Later, he approached his mother, who was still in bed, and hesitantly asked if she had seen the correspondence book he had left nearby, explaining that his teacher required her signature on a consent form. His mother responded with a sharp, dismissive tone, telling him to shut up and leave. She further instructed him to simply sign the form himself, expressing her complete disinterest in his field trip or any related matters. Realizing the futility of waiting, he acknowledged her words and resolved to attempt signing the document himself. With careful strokes, he forged the signature, then looked at his work with a sense of accomplishment, noting how well it had turned out. Next, his gaze fell upon the Parents' Day notification. He picked up the notification, crumpling it into a ball, a quiet resignation settling over him as he thought that his mother would not attend anyway. Later, carrying 2 large bags of trash, he descended the stairs, encountering an older woman who was also disposing of refuse. She called out to him, but he simply tossed his bags into the designated bins, ignoring her. As he took out the trash, Koji was abruptly confronted by the older woman neighbor, who sternly questioned if he had properly separated the garbage. She pointed out that he had mixed bottle cans with burnable waste, expressing frustration that people who failed to separate trash correctly created problems for others. Just as the neighbor continued her admonishment, Naoko appeared, greeting the older woman cheerfully. She offered to help Koji, acknowledging that trash separation could be confusing, and urged him to go to school so he wouldn't be late. Despite Naoko's intervention, the neighbor persisted, complaining that Koji's trash sorting was not his only issue and that many people were unhappy with him. She then asked Naoko if she was perhaps Koji's elder sister, suggesting she do something about him, while Naoko waved goodbye to Koji as he departed. The neighbor's words, particularly her complaints about Koji and her question about his mother, caused Naoko to flinch, her expression shifting to one of deep concern and unease. Still unsettled, Naoko inquired if something had just happened between the neighbor and the woman who had recently left. The older woman, visibly shaken, confirmed that she had been terrified by the encounter, identifying the departing woman as Ms. Kimura. Later, back in her own home, Naoko sat surrounded by various items of trash, meticulously sorting them. Her brow was furrowed in thought, clearly still pondering the morning's events and the neighbor's unsettling words about Koji and his mother. As she continued to sort, Naoko reflected on Koji's mother, noting that she mostly left convenience store lunchboxes, suggesting Koji likely wasn't even eating breakfast. She then discovered a school document, a consent form, among the discarded items, realizing it was the cause of Koji's earlier distress. With a grim determination, Naoko took a lighter and set the school document ablaze. As the paper crackled and burned, she declared that she would take care of this stupid lot, who were bullying now in the same destructive manner. Her eyes filled with a fierce, protective resolve. The digital alarm clock blared, its insistent beeping echoing through the quiet room. As Naoko lay sprawled in bed, slowly stirring from her sleep, she stretched languidly, her body arching as she rose, then gently kissed a small doll, murmuring a soft morning. Now humming a tune, she moved to the kitchen, expertly slicing vegetables and preparing a crisp, delicious-looking sandwich. Moments later, she shuffled into the dining area, taking a large bite of the sandwich and exclaiming at its deliciousness. As she finished her meal, Naoko heard a commotion and rushed to the door, greeting her brother, Naoto, who was already leaving for school. She offered him a sandwich, but he declined, stating he had already eaten. She then playfully admonished him to behave before he departed, reminding him that skipping breakfast was unhealthy. Meanwhile, Koji's mother emerged from her apartment, observing Naoto's departure. She remarked to the older woman neighbor that it was as lively as ever in Naoko's house, then asked Naoto if he was having fun with his family. Naoto, looking downcast, pondered her words, realizing that was how it appeared to others. Naoto continued down the stairs, his footsteps echoing, a thoughtful expression on his face. As he reached the bottom, Koji, eating a sandwich, and another boy with spiky hair, Shiyuta, greeted him. Naoko from her doorway also called out to Naoto. Shiyuta then suggested to Naoto that they walk to school together, noting it had been a while since they last did so. Koji, seeing Naoko still at her door, introduced Shiyuta to her, confirming his name. Naoko, smiling warmly, greeted Shiyuta, who then asked if she was the person Koji had gone to lunch with. Naoko confirmed, and the three boys waved goodbye to her as they headed off to school. As the children walked along the street, their conversation continued, one of them remarking that a certain woman was indeed very pretty. Their discussion then turned to the woman's marital status, with one boy questioning why that mattered, while another expressed envy for having such a kind lady living next door. Unbeknownst to them, Koji's mother observed their departure from a distance. The conversation shifted again, with Naoto's brother remarking on the joys of having siblings, prompting Shiyuta to lament his own situation, wishing for a nice big sister instead of his younger brother and sister. Shiyuta continued, expressing his frustration at being constantly burdened with responsibilities, as everyone simply told him, "You're our big brother, after all." Koji, in contrast, confessed his loneliness as an only child, prompting Shiyuta to tell him to stop complaining. As they reached the school, the children continued their discussion, with one of them acknowledging that having many siblings could also be difficult. Meanwhile, at an office, the phones rang incessantly, creating a chaotic atmosphere. Naoko, visibly stressed, wondered aloud why she had to deal with such nonsense so early in the morning, while a colleague calmly assured someone on the phone that their opinion would be taken into consideration. Naoko's colleague, a teacher, pondered the reason for the flood of calls, noting that Naoko hadn't even answered the phone once. She then advised Naoko that ignoring the complaints was not an option, as it would cause trouble later, emphasizing the need to address them properly. Far from the beleaguered office, Koji's mother sat at her laptop, a subtle smile playing on her lips as she typed, musing that someone with too much free time must be behind the complaints. Her fingers moved rapidly across the keyboard, each tap a deliberate action, as she continued her work on the laptop. On her smartphone, a call was being placed to a contact labeled trash, while a document on her screen detailed complaints from anonymous mom about an HR teacher who allegedly gave preferential treatment and treated her son badly, expressing frustration that her previous calls had been ignored. The phones continued their incessant ringing at Naoko's office, the deluge of complaints showing no sign of abating. She attempted to contact the school, but the line remained busy, leading her to speculate that the sheer volume of calls had overwhelmed their system. Her colleague, equally swamped, worked diligently beside her. Later, at home, she stretched vigorously, a wide smile gracing her face as she declared her work for the day complete, feeling refreshed. Koji rested comfortably on her lap. Meanwhile, Koji's mother stood by her window, observing the sky. A distant rumble of thunder echoed, yet she remarked with a peculiar satisfaction that the weather was great. She then turned to Koji, who was nearby, seeking his agreement that she was blessed with nice weather after having done something good, believing that God must be watching her. As the first drops of rain began to fall, she decided it was time to get ready, turning away from the window. Elsewhere, at the school, a sudden, heavy downpour began, catching the children off guard. Koji, realizing he had forgotten his umbrella, looked around for a spare. Naoto, however, had brought one and, seeing Koji's predicament, offered it to him, though another child warned against taking it without permission. Naoto then shared his umbrella with Koji, admitting it was a hand-me-down from his parents and looked super lame, due to its color, but concluded that it's better than nothing against such a heavy downpour, even if a folding umbrella would be insufficient. Despite the offer, Naoto suddenly declared he would just run home, bidding Koji farewell and leaving him with the umbrella. Koji stood there, looking at the umbrella, a thoughtful expression on his face. After a moment, he decided against using it, instead running through the heavy rain, splashing through puddles. He lamented that his clothes were soaked through and wondered if they would dry. Still dripping from the downpour, he looked up to see Naoto standing before him, holding an umbrella. She offered a subtle, knowing smirk as the rain continued to patter around them. Moments later, Naoto extended her umbrella to another boy, Naoto, who was also thoroughly drenched. She welcomed him, but he declined the umbrella, stating he was already too soaked for it to matter. Naoto simply remarked that their meeting was by chance. Naoto then playfully suggested that the rain might serve as a substitute for a shower, a perfect solution for her, before clarifying that she was only joking. She then offered Naoto a bath at her house, a suggestion that visibly surprised Koji. Naoto, however, hesitated, stating he couldn't impose on her. Naoto pressed the matter, reminding Naoto that he couldn't take a bath at his own house, because his hot water wasn't working. He acknowledged her point. Naoto, surprised by her knowledge, asked how she knew about the issue with his hot water. Naoto explained that she had seen the gas meter readings at his house and immediately understood the situation. She insisted that she would feel bad if she let him go home and catch a cold, urging him to take a warm bath. Convinced, Naoto finally accepted her offer. Naoto led the way into her house, then began preparing the bath. Koji waited patiently, still dripping wet. She called out to him, assuring him the water felt perfect and inviting him to go ahead and bathe. He stepped into the bathroom, observing its clean and pleasant appearance. As he looked around, he realized the bathroom looked nothing like the one in his own home, a stark difference that caught his attention. With a determined expression, Naoto declared he would go in for his bath. Naoko watched him from the side, a subtle anticipation in her gaze. As he stepped into the unfamiliar bathroom, a bra hanging to dry startled him. He began to undress, his eyes wide with curiosity as he examined the faucet, wondering how to make the water flow. Moments later, Naoko, now in a simple dress and holding a towel, entered the bathroom. She noticed the cold water splashing, a slight frown on her face. He quickly figured out the mechanism, rotating the tap vertically, and water began to sprinkle out. A joyful exclamation escaped him as he felt the warm spray. Meanwhile, Naoko reached for something in the background. Suddenly, Naoko was overcome, her hair flying wildly as she stumbled, water splashing around her. She panted, a strange intensity in her expression as she sniffed the air. While Naoto happily scrubbed himself clean in the bath, Naoko remained in a state of heightened sensation. Her face flushed, deeply inhaling what she perceived as Naoto scent. Her breathing grew ragged. He reveled in the warmth, letting out a delighted cry as he submerged himself fully in the bath water. Naoko, still visibly affected, twitched and perspired, her head tilted back in a mixture of pleasure and distress. Later, Naoko, now composed and seated, greeted someone, asking about their bath. Koji stood nearby, observing the scene. Naoto, now dressed in new clothes, explained that his own were wet. Naoko, beaming, offered him the new garments, revealing they were originally meant for relatives but were disliked, making her happy for him to take them. Koji listened intently. With a gentle touch, Naoko reached out to Naoto, who was now wrapped in a hooded towel, her gaze soft and affectionate as she caressed his face. She leaned in close to Naoto, her hand gently touching his face, causing him to blush deeply. Her gaze was fixed on him, an intense expression in her eyes as she adjusted his new clothing. Still holding him close, she brought her face even nearer to his. Their eyes locked in a moment of charged intimacy, his cheeks still flushed with a deep crimson. Her hand moved to cup the back of his head, pulling him gently but firmly closer, his expression a mix of surprise and a lingering blush. She finally pulled back slightly, a soft smile gracing her lips as she murmured that it felt good, confirming that the process was now complete. Naoto, still flushed, seemed to be on the verge of dozing off. Now dressed in his new shirt, Naoto sat quietly in a chair, looking around the room. Meanwhile, she walked away, reminding him that they should eat before he got cold after his bath. She soon returned, her face beaming with excitement as she presented 2 cone ice creams to a surprised Naoto, exclaiming that she had brought them. They both began to enjoy their treats. She then asked Naoto if he was the type to nibble his ice cream, to which he happily confirmed, expressing his gratitude. Suddenly, she bit into her ice cream cone with a sharp, startling crunch, causing Naoto to flinch in surprise. He internally noted that his own mother also had a habit of biting her ice cream. She laughed, explaining that she had clenched it just a little too hard, causing it to shatter, and then asked if he was all right. With a sly smile, she then licked the remaining ice cream, declaring that she was the type to lick it, while Naoto watched her with wide, bewildered eyes. She continued to lick the melting ice cream from her fingers, her gaze fixed on Naoto as she declared it would be a waste to leave it like this. Naoto, still flustered, could only manage a soft ugh as his heart pounded. She then extended an invitation, telling him not to hold back and to feel free to take a bath at her house. He thanked her profusely for the bath and the clothes, to which she responded with a peculiar suggestion. "Well then, let's go for another sniff before I wash my clothes." Moments later, she appeared in the doorway, now wrapped only in a towel, and informed him that she would return his clothes after properly washing them. He brightened considerably at this, exclaiming his relief, as he admitted he didn't know how to wash clothes himself. Later, settled in bed, Naoto reflected on the day. The bath had felt incredibly refreshing, and he was grateful she had also provided him with clothes. He tugged at the shirt he was wearing, realizing he didn't want to get these new clothes dirty, and decided he should change. As he drifted off to sleep, a contented smile graced his face, hoping that another good thing would happen to him tomorrow. Through a window, the outside world appeared lush with foliage, while inside, a quiet classroom awaited. The thought lingered that class observation day was fast approaching. Inside the classroom, a new teacher, her expression bright, confessed her nervousness about the upcoming class observation day. Her colleague, a seasoned teacher, inquired if she had never participated in such an event before, realizing that as a new teacher, she wouldn't have experienced it. The new teacher, surprised, acknowledged her inexperience, while her colleague remarked that it was nothing glorious, though it would surely be a good experience for her. As the conversation continued, the experienced teacher, with a slight sigh, asked if her colleague had collected all the consent forms from the students. She then mused that everyone always tried to be overly diligent, and that parents would surely complain if she didn't treat everyone fairly. She wondered aloud if she would ever reach an age where she could do her job without any mistakes. Her colleague, the new teacher, diligently cross-referenced the collected consent forms with a list, finding the task of verification challenging. She then noticed a particular signature among the documents. The new teacher's gaze lingered on the peculiar signature, a faint, unsettling smile gracing her lips as she observed it. She noted that it looked almost as if it had been signed by a child. Meanwhile, in a bustling home, Naoko, wearing a cap, watched as Koji, Mio, Shiuda, and another young girl played. Mio, in a light dress, ran excitedly, causing a small commotion as she bumped into Shiuda, who was lying on the couch. Koji, wearing his distinctive MK shirt, looked on, while the other girl, with short dark hair, also moved about. Moments later, Mio, now holding a plate, instructed Shiuda to hurry up and finish the dishes. He, caught off guard, claimed he was about to do them, prompting Mio to retort, asking if he would have done them without her telling him. As Shiuda continued to procrastinate, Mio, with a slightly exasperated expression, brought up class observation day, reminding him of the date she had marked in the calendar. He, however, seemed confused, asking what she was talking about. He then clarified, realizing she was referring to the calendar, and stated that it was Mio's parents' day. Mio, holding a plate, confirmed that she would indeed become a princess on that big day. Shiuda, still processing, then asked if their father would also be attending. Mio, sitting on the floor, looked up at her older brother, asking if he would be coming. Naoko, standing nearby, explained that he needed to go to school and would not be able to attend. His feet moved with a steady rhythm as he walked away. Moments later, Naoko looked down at the shoes in the entryway, counting them, while her brother continued to head out the door. She called out that she was leaving as well. He opened his door, stepping out, while Naoko simultaneously opened her own door, ready to depart. He offered a polite, "Good morning," as he passed, and she responded with a bright, cheerful smile, returning the greeting. As he walked past, Naoko observed him, thinking to herself that he was as cold and distant as ever. She called out, "Wait." He paused, and she explained that she would be home late and wouldn't need dinner. She also mentioned that their mother wanted him to do something for her and go to her house. He acknowledged her words, taking a document she handed him, and she concluded by saying she was counting on him. He continued on his way, while Naoko, with a forced smile, waved goodbye, telling him to take care. She then muttered to herself that she needed to smile more as she prepared to leave. His footsteps echoed as he walked away. Naoko, now alone, thought about her own tasks for the day, realizing she needed to clean up, and then stop by her mother-in-law's house. She let out a sigh, wondering why the lady living next door was always so insistent on talking with her, but then reassured herself that she could hold herself together, surprisingly enough. She harbored a secret thought, a quiet admission that she struggled in her interactions with a particular husband. Meanwhile, her younger brother, Naoto, walked to school, a backpack slung over his shoulders. He mused internally that the boy resembled his father. As he continued, a girl called out to him from an upper floor of the building, urging him to hurry. He responded with a simple affirmation. She then questioned him about his recent eating habits, asking if the neighbor lady had been giving him food, to which he simply replied, "Yeah." The girl then leaned in, playfully remarking on his good fortune, while Naoto continued to eat his snack. Their conversation shifted to the upcoming class observation day, confirming that it was happening at both their houses. She then directly asked him if his parents would be attending the event. A knowing look crossed her face as he confirmed their absence, taking another bite of his food. Later, in the classroom, the teacher clapped her hands to gain the attention of the seated students. As she continued, announcing an essay assignment related to the subject they had decided upon until class observation day, one student groaned, finding it a drag, while Koji reacted with surprise. She then announced the specific subject for the upcoming essay, "My beloved person." She further clarified that while it could be a parent, it could also be a sibling or a friend, emphasizing that the most important aspect was to infuse it with genuine feelings. Naoto listened intently, his expression thoughtful. As the teacher continued, she reminded them that they would be reading their essays aloud to many people on class observation day. Naoto, sitting beside his friend, reacted with a quiet wow. His friend, looking serious, added that they might even read it in front of their own parents, urging them to write it properly. Naoto's hand clenched tightly, his brow furrowed in concern. Moments later, Naoto crumpled a piece of paper in his hand, his gaze distant as he sat at his desk, the weight of the assignment clearly pressing upon him. Meanwhile, in another classroom, the teacher began her lesson. Koji, sitting among his classmates, appeared visibly worried, his eyes wide with a troubled expression. Later, during cleaning time, the students diligently worked to tidy their classroom. Koji knelt on the floor, scrubbing, while Naoto swept nearby, and other children handled various tasks, some calling out playfully. Suddenly, a crumpled paper flew through the air, striking Naoto. He cried out in pain, clutching his head, as Koji quickly apologized, realizing he had accidentally hit him while playing around. Another student admonished them to clean properly. Naoto, still recovering from the impact, looked out the window, his thoughts returning to the essay. He wondered who he should write about, his gaze falling on his friend Shoyuta, who was still playing, and a crumpled paper lay beside him. Later that day at home, Naoto carefully placed a decorated cake onto a table, while her brother, Naoto, watched with bright eyes, eager for the treat. She had tried her hand at making a strawberry tart, and the result was a visually appealing dessert, prompting an exclamation of delight at its appearance. As her brother took a bite, she chuckled softly, encouraging him to savor the treat. He found it incredibly delicious, a fact that pleased her greatly. Moments later, she smoothly pointed out that he had some tart on his face. He, meanwhile, was preoccupied with thoughts of the upcoming class observation day. After a brief pause, he turned to her, asking if he could write about her for his essay on a beloved person, which was the assigned topic. Her face lit up with overwhelming joy and surprise at his request. She enthusiastically declared that he could write as much as he desired. Her excitement continued as she mentioned that with no character limit, he could write up to 10,000 words, roughly 25 pages. He, however, was taken aback, exclaiming that he could not possibly write that much. Despite her initial joy, a shadow of sadness crossed her face as she admitted she couldn't attend class observation day. Yet, her spirits quickly lifted, expressing immense happiness and anticipation. He, in turn, was surprised by the depth of her joy. He then found himself lost in thought, wishing he could see her reading his essay aloud, and a profound desire formed within him to have Naruko as his mother. Meanwhile, in another household, a young boy asked his father to hold him up, to which the man readily agreed, lifting him playfully. The man then held a young girl dressed in an elaborate frilly dress, calling her adorable and questioning if she was a princess, while another boy looked on with envy. Nearby, a girl cleared dishes from the table, acknowledging the meal. A young boy, his backpack slung over his shoulders, prepared to leave the school building. Other children and a teacher stood nearby, observing the departures. As the boy began to walk away, another child, Shiyuta, called out to him, urging him to wait. Shiyuta then questioned him, asking why he hadn't used the customary farewell before leaving. The boy, Naoto, turned back with a wide, cheerful grin, declaring his departure. As Naoto approached, Shiyuta pointed at his shirt, remarking on his new clothes. Moments later, as they walked side by side down the street, Shiyuta inquired about the essay Naoto was supposed to write, and he confirmed that it was complete. His simple confirmation sent a jolt of surprise through Shiyuta, who gasped, wondering if Naoto had written about his mother or someone else entirely. Naoto chuckled, pleased that Shiyuta had guessed correctly, confirming he had indeed written about the lady who lived next door. A faint image of Naoko, smiling, flickered in his mind. Shiyuta, still bewildered, pressed him for a reason, asking if he was simply bragging. Naoto explained that she was kind, pretty, And, perhaps most importantly, she often gave him delicious food, conjuring images of sandwiches and desserts. He then added, with a casual shrug, that writing about his own parents simply wouldn't have worked out for the essay, implying a practical reason for his choice. He continued, explaining to Shiyuda that he would have written his essay about his own mother, but only if Naoko were his actual mother, implying his deep admiration for her. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a patterned garment, possibly a yukata or kimono, lay neatly folded on a bed beside a small handbag, suggesting preparations were underway. She was in her room, dressed only in her undergarments, her gaze cast downwards as she adjusted something. A reflection in a nearby mirror showed her in the patterned garment, hinting at her imminent transformation. Now fully dressed in the elegant patterned yukata and a wide-brimmed hat, Naoko held a small bag, her thoughts turning to the day ahead. She mused that it was the time for things to begin, and since she was going to see now on his big day, she needed to be completely ready. From a classroom window, a young girl with pigtails waves to a boy outside, who returns her greeting. Below, several adults, including a man and woman in formal attire, gather near the school entrance. Inside, she informs the boy with short hair that both her parents are attending. He remarks that her mother possesses excellent fashion sense, but her father tends to dress like a typical old man, a sentiment she readily agrees with, finding his style rather tacky. He then complains that his own parents are a royal pain, having insisted on coming despite his protests. He reveals they promised to take him to a yakiniku restaurant for tasty meat after the class observation day concludes. Meanwhile, outside, a woman in a striking floral patterned dress and a wide-brimmed hat makes her way towards the school, her elegant heels clicking with each step. Behind her, a man with glasses follows, appearing somewhat flustered. Her eyes, sharp and intense, betray a hidden depth beneath her fashionable exterior, hinting at a formidable presence. As she enters the building, the man and woman in suits from earlier exchange brief, knowing glances, their expressions unreadable. The classroom quickly fills with parents, creating a bustling atmosphere for the class observation day. Students sit attentively at their desks, some looking nervous, others excited, as their parents stand behind them, observing. The teacher claps her hands, calling for silence and playfully reminding the students not to raise their hands excessively just because their parents are present. She then poses a question to the class, inviting responses. She then calls on a boy named Yamada, who enthusiastically raises his hand, only to admit with a sheepish grin that he has forgotten the answer. His parents, a smiling woman and a man with a beard, apologize profusely for their idiot son, while another woman in a wide-brimmed hat clicked her tongue, wondering what she was to do with him. Meanwhile, a boy with short dark hair, seated in the classroom, internally noted that the teacher was not picking him at all. The teacher, however, then called out, "Then next is Ichikawa." The woman in the floral dress, still observing from the back, bit her lip in intense frustration, her eyes shadowed by the brim of her hat. Moments later, the teacher addressed the class, announcing that it was finally time for their oral presentations. She instructed them to raise a hand if they wished to read their essay aloud. The woman in the floral dress, her expression shifting, offered a subtle smile as the boy with short dark hair, who had been thinking about not being picked, eagerly shot his hand into the air. Her intense focus returned, her mouth a tight line, as the teacher then called upon Sahara. The student responded with a polite, "Yes, ma'am." The parents, including the woman in the floral dress, watched with an almost palpable intensity, their gazes fixed on the students as the presentations continued. The teacher praised the previous presenter, noting it was well done, especially considering they chose to go first. She then asked who would be next, and the same eager boy immediately raised his hand again. His eagerness was overwhelming, a powerful surge of energy emanating from him as he seemingly willed the teacher to pick him. The teacher, visibly flustered, stammered, "Thank." As the classroom erupted into chaos, desks were overturned, and students looked around in confusion, wondering what had just happened. The teacher, still reeling from the previous chaos, called out to Saitu. He looked up, startled, as the woman in the floral dress, his mother, stood among the observing parents, beaming with pride. Other students whispered, wondering if she was indeed his mother, given her rather flamboyant presence. He stood before the class, his back to the audience, seemingly hesitant to begin his oral presentation. The teacher's hand extended, perhaps urging him on or trying to maintain order. As he began his presentation, Saitu declared that his beloved person was. He looked towards the woman in the floral dress, who stood with her hands clasped, blushing deeply. He continued, revealing that his beloved person was the lady who had recently moved in next door. He loved her because she was kind, always let him eat delicious food, worried about him when he was soaked on a rainy day, and even allowed him to take baths in her house. As he spoke, the woman in the floral dress listened intently, her expression shifting from embarrassment to a deep, almost unsettling, focus. A single pair of hands began to clap, the sound echoing through the quiet classroom. The clapping intensified, coming from the woman in the floral dress, who was now applauding with fervent enthusiasm. Other parents looked on, some with smiles, others with a hint of bewilderment, as Saitu watched his mother's passionate display. Her applause grew even louder, a rhythmic, almost overwhelming sound that filled the room, drowning out any other noise. Saitu stood before the class, surrounded by the silhouettes of the other parents, his mother's clapping the dominant force. The teacher, now smiling, complimented Saitu on a splendid oral presentation, while he, still blushing, seemed pleased. She then wondered aloud why everyone had gotten so excited over a simple essay. Later, as the school day concluded, students began to gather their belongings and leave the classroom, which had returned to its usual orderly state. Saitu and another girl were among those preparing to depart. The girl with blonde hair, clearly annoyed, demanded that they go home already, complaining that Seta's mother was too loud. His mother, however, was already excitedly planning to go eat expensive grilled meat, while the man with glasses tried to temper her enthusiasm, reminding her of the cost. Saitu, caught between them, looked on with a mix of exasperation and embarrassment. He remained at school, searching for someone, when his classmate asked if his parents hadn't come for him either. He then noticed a woman in a wide-brimmed hat and wondered whose mother she could be. Meanwhile, in a classroom, a girl with short hair inquired about class observation day, to which her friend with pigtails replied that it was the same as usual. A hand with dark nail polish, likely belonging to the mysterious woman, was seen holding a book. The girl with short hair reflected that, despite the ordinary response, there had indeed been a strange mother among the parents, whose presence had made the entire atmosphere very tense. She concluded that it was pointless to dwell on the woman, yet knew she would not forget her strong impression. Still, she wondered whose mother she was, but her friend admitted she didn't know every parent's face. As the school day concluded, the mysterious woman in the wide-brimmed hat walked alone down a long, empty school hallway, her figure casting a solitary shadow. Her distinctive floral pattern dress rustled softly with each step, a stark contrast to the quiet emptiness of the corridor. Time passed, marked by the slow sweep of a clock's hand, the silent hum of an electrical outlet, and the stillness of a forgotten screwdriver, suggesting the late hours of the school day. Later, the girl with short hair stood alone in a classroom, looking out the window, a sense of unease beginning to settle over her. She walked through the deserted hallways, feeling the creepy atmosphere of the school and a premonition that something might suddenly appear. She believed everyone else had already left. As she continued her patrol, she tried to dismiss her growing fear, but her face betrayed her, contorting into a forced, fearful smile, as if anticipating a typical jump scare. The mysterious woman in the wide-brimmed hat stood alone in the deserted classroom, her silhouette stark against the bright windows. Meanwhile, the young girl, who had been anticipating a fright, was now consumed by overwhelming terror, her eyes wide with shock and fear. Her fear intensified as the imposing figure of the woman loomed, prompting the girl to shriek and flee in a desperate attempt to escape. The woman continued her unsettling presence, moving through the school hallways as a distant, desperate cry of an "oh" echoed. Having seemingly found a moment of solitude, she settled into a classroom, declaring she could finally enjoy herself to her heart's content. She dismissed any lingering apprehension, stating there was no need to be so startled and that she was not a fairy. Her hand then gently touched the surface of a desk before she leaned over it, a sense of calm washing over her. She rested her head on the desk, a soft smile gracing her lips as she found comfort in its warmth. A quiet thought then crossed her mind. Beloved person, huh? Still resting, her gaze softened as she considered her desire to preserve a memory. A pencil then meticulously carved two names, Naruko and Naoto, into the desk, connected by a heart pierced with an arrow. With the carving complete, she looked down at her work, a satisfied grin spreading across her face as she announced, "It's done." Standing up, she admired the carved names, musing on how fancy it looked, yet how fleeting such a memory could be. She then recalled Naoto's oral presentation from earlier that day, remembering it as the best, despite everything else being terrible until the teacher had chosen him. She finished carving the word cursed D into the desk, a grim satisfaction on her face. She recalled something profoundly unpleasant and mused about carving the desk of that brat as well. A vivid memory surfaced, a young boy, full of unbridled enthusiasm, waving his hand vigorously and exclaiming his agreement. She declared her work complete, asserting that she had carved it nicely and that the brat should be thankful. The memory continued, showing the boy's thoughtful expression as he considered his mother and the feeling that nothing was left. Then, a realization dawned on him. There was one more place he needed to go. The classroom now stood empty, the day's activities having drawn to a close. The woman, her task seemingly complete, walked away from the carved desk and out of the classroom. She proceeded to a row of lockers in the hallway, opening one and reaching inside. Meanwhile, a teacher entered an office, the door clicking shut behind her. She settled into her desk chair, a weary sigh escaping her lips. She found the class presentation day to be excruciatingly tiring, dismissing it as a mere time waster for stupid parents. Her frustration mounted as she recalled how infuriating it was that someone like Saito, whose parents hadn't even bothered to attend, had dared to raise his hand during his presentation. She firmly believed that bottom feeders should simply behave themselves and remain inconspicuous. Her thoughts turned darker, a venomous wish forming in her mind. She wished Naoto Saito would simply disappear. A shadowy, intense image of a man, possibly Naoto himself, filled her mind's eye. The teacher, still at her desk, turned her head slightly, a faint sense of unease stirring within her. Unseen, the mysterious woman was now concealed beneath a nearby desk, a small, sharp object lying on the floor beside her. Still concealed beneath the desk, she remained hidden as the teacher, frustrated, bent down to search for something, muttering about what the hell it is. A sudden shiver ran through her as the teacher finally located an object, pulling it out from under the desk. She held up a peculiar, stupid-looking ballpoint pen, questioning aloud whose it could be. Without warning, she emerged from her hiding spot, wielding a long stick. With a forceful blow, she struck Naoto Saito on the head, sending the peculiar pen flying from his grasp as he recoiled in shock. The clock ticked slowly in the dimly lit hospital room, its rhythmic sound doing little to soothe the young girl huddled beneath her blanket. She trembled uncontrollably, her eyes wide with fear, as if haunted by unseen specters. Moments later, she found herself standing outside a teacher room, offering a hurried apology for her lateness, though her words trailed off. A sudden dash down a dark, foreboding hallway followed, the darkness intensifying her fear. Soon, she was back in bed, pulling the blanket over her head, desperately hoping everything would be fine now. As she navigated the teacher's room, a sudden, jarring sight made her gasp. The adult woman, Miss Takahashi, lay sprawled on the floor, seemingly lifeless. The girl staggered back, her mind struggling to comprehend the scene. Her hand instinctively reached out, a tentative gesture towards the fallen figure. With a soft chew escaping her lips, she crouched beside the woman, her expression a mix of shock and concern as she gently touched her head. Suddenly, a different young girl appeared, her face contorted in a desperate cry, pointing a trembling finger and screaming that the woman was dead. Yet, to their astonishment, the fallen woman stirred, slowly rising from the floor. She declared, with a hint of indignation, that she was, of course, not dead. The girl recoiled, a horrified gasp escaping her as she shivered uncontrollably, convinced she was witnessing a ghost, someone risen from the dead. The woman, however, calmly explained that she had been alive in the first place, then asked if the girl was hurt anywhere. The girl, still shaken, mumbled, wondering when she might have gotten injured. Then her eyes widened in terror as she noticed a dark, sticky substance on her palm, realizing with a shriek that she was bleeding. A sudden flash of light momentarily obscured the scene, leaving only the girl's profile, her eyes closed, as if bracing for an unknown impact. She knelt on the floor, her hands still bleeding, as an ambulance wailed outside. Another woman, concerned, urged her to go to the hospital immediately, but the girl could not remember anything about what had happened. Later, in the infirmary, she appeared utterly exhausted. The woman in the suit asked if she was sleep-deprived, while a woman with glasses, a doctor, remarked that her condition made sense given the recent incident, hinting at a connection between the two events. As the conversation continued, the girl grew agitated, expressing her doubt that she could handle teaching upper-grade elementary classes. The doctor confirmed that she had indeed been put in charge of Ms. Takahashi's class until the teacher was discharged. She tried to brush off her current state, claiming she had merely tripped, but the doctor sternly reminded her that it was no laughing matter. The doctor then added that there was no avoiding Ms. Takahashi's usual nagging, implying the girl's new role was a direct consequence of the teacher's absence. Meanwhile, the doctor herself lay in bed, contemplating if she had perhaps pushed too hard. She mused on the necessity of giving everyone a fair chance, suggesting her decision regarding the girl's new assignment was carefully considered. Back in the classroom, a new teacher, a woman with a beret, introduced herself, explaining that Ms. Takahashi had fallen ill and would be taking some days off. She announced that she would act as the interim homeroom teacher. The girl, now at the front of the class, appeared nervous, prompting a boy to ask if she was all right. The new teacher, smiling, internally recalled Ms. Takahashi mentioning this particular child, noting the mix of bright and troublesome students in the class. As the girl stood before the class, her gaze fell upon the boy who had spoken, observing his features and recalling something about the other one. The boy, in turn, offered a bright, innocent smile. The girl began taking attendance, calling out a name. The boy promptly responded, confirming his presence. Despite her earlier thought that he might be a troubled child, she found his radiant demeanor to be too bright and adorable. Moments later, the boy proudly showed his phone to his classmates, exclaiming that he had caught a rare mon, while the girl observed his antics from the front of the classroom. He watched as Yamada, engrossed in his handheld game console, was gently admonished by the substitute teacher, Miho Kato, for bringing such an item to school. Miho, however, found herself in a quandary. Miss Takahashi, the regular teacher, had never mentioned a rule against game consoles. If the previous teacher hadn't addressed it, Miho felt it would be inappropriate for her to scold the boy now. Yamada, oblivious to the teacher's internal conflict, continued to discuss his game, mentioning a rare mon that was too weak and asking if someone had a fire-type rare mon to swipe with him for a better one. His enthusiasm spread, and he turned to another classmate, Shoyuta, asking if he also played Pokemon Battle. Shoyuta confirmed that he did. Yamada then proposed they exchange monsters and engage in player-versus-player battles. Shoyuta agreed, though he warned Yamada that he was quite weak. The boys decided to meet at Yamada's house later that day to play. Miho Kato, observing the console from a distance, found herself thinking how lucky they were to have such devices and that they looked quite fun. Yamada then turned to Naoto, offering him a chance to play with them if he were to buy his own game console. Naoto considered the offer, realizing he could join in the fun if he owned a console. He knew they were likely expensive, but the idea of trying them out, having never played before, was undeniably appealing. Later, at home, ManhwaCapped found herself browsing online. Her first priority, she decided, was to purchase the consoles. She added 2 to her cart, preparing to complete the order. As she continued her shopping, she realized she would also need controllers and a game manual. She opted for a console of a different color and one that came as a bundled parcel. Her cart quickly filled with more items. She decided to buy the Game of Life, a party game, and an action game, wondering if she had perhaps bought too many. A woman with long, dark hair sat before a keyboard, her expression one of deep contemplation and slight irritation. She muttered to herself, convinced that someone was a nuisance, and that something drastic needed to be done about that brat. Meanwhile, ManhwaCapped, the substitute teacher, approached Naoto Saito, calling his name with a warm smile. She explained that she had a favor to ask of him, leaving him curious about her request. She then leaned in, her face flushed with excitement, and revealed her desire. She wanted his help to conquer the game known as Pokemon Battle. Naoto, though eager to assist, admitted he didn't own a game console. Miho quickly reassured him, explaining that she had purchased 2 consoles, allowing them to play together. He was astonished by her generosity, especially since it was the same game Yamada played. Soon after, they were engrossed in a game, sharing sweets as they played. Naoto observed the 2 consoles, realizing that Miho, who had never owned one before, had now acquired 2. He concluded that she must be quite wealthy. The 2 continued to play, sitting closely together, their attention fixed on the screens. Other children were also present, similarly engaged in their own games. As they played, Naoto found it increasingly difficult to concentrate. Their close proximity meant he could feel her body pressing against him, causing him to blush and feel a rapid thumping in his chest. Miho noticed his discomfort and asked if he was having trouble playing. He stammered, trying to explain that she was too close, but she countered that she couldn't see the screen properly if she didn't snuggle close. Despite his awkwardness, they remained in their tight embrace, continuing the game. Miho exclaimed how much fun games were, expressing her surprise at their enjoyment and praising Naoto for his skill, despite his inexperience. Naoto, however, found himself wishing he had his own game console. He then observed other boys, including Shoyuta, playing together in a group and wondered if they would let him join their circle if he possessed his own console. He looked away, a blush creeping onto his cheeks, before turning back with a determined expression and stating his resolve. His teacher, ManhwaCapped, then surprised him by offering to lend him the game console, an offer that left him wide-eyed and speechless. He internally wished he had his own console to play with everyone, but Miho reassured him, explaining that she possessed 2 consoles and his help in advancing the game would be invaluable. She then added that she had one more thing she wished to give him, causing him to question what it could be. With a subtle movement, she reached into her shirt and pulled out a delicate chain. A small, ornate key dangled from the chain, which she then released. He stared in disbelief at the key, questioning its purpose. Miho calmly revealed it was a key to her house, inviting him to come and play there freely. He immediately protested, insisting he could not accept such a valuable item. Despite his objections, she gently placed the key directly into his hand. She continued, explaining that he could charge the game console at her house and even use her bath, reiterating that he was free to come to her house anytime. Overwhelmed, he could only offer a quiet thanks. Later that night, alone in his room, he played the game console, the screen's glow illuminating his face in the darkness. He realized with a start that the console was about to run out of charge, needing to be recharged for tomorrow's session. He lay awake, the weight of his recent acquisition heavy on his mind. He realized that, even with the console, he would not be able to play with everyone, a solitary thought echoing in the quiet room. Elsewhere, a hand with long, dark nails reached down, revealing a woman with light hair and glasses. She knelt, examining a small, intricate object, her expression one of curiosity as she wondered aloud what it could be. As she held the object closer, it became clear it was a key, unlike any she recognized. Her thoughts raced, concluding it was not theirs, and a new question formed. Whose key was this? Still pondering the mystery of the key, she took a drag from her cigarette, her gaze fixed intently on something or someone just out of view below her. Naoto Saito sat with a downcast expression, his gaze fixed downwards, as a teacher explained the nuances of a protagonist's emotions within a narrative, specifically noting how those feelings emerged after certain words were received. His friend, Yamada, observed him from a distance, noting to himself that it was quite rare for Naoto to appear so sleepy. Moments later, Yamada called out to Naoto, apologizing for the interruption, and suggested they play football, remarking that it had been a while. Naoto, still at his desk, seemed hesitant to respond. Instead of joining them, Naoto ran off, breathing heavily, leaving Yamada and another boy to watch him go. Yamada then mused that there were indeed times when Naoto would decline their invitations to play football. He continued his hurried pace through the school hallway, his eyes wide with a surprised, almost flustered expression as he passed Niho Kato. Upon arriving home, a woman with long, dark hair greeted him warmly, welcoming him back. She then leaned in, asking how they should proceed, to which Naoto responded with an enthusiastic yeah. As they settled in, the woman sat beside Naoto, who was engrossed in a handheld game console. She praised his last move as awesome, encouraging him to try and replicate the technique. She further advised him to seize the opportunity to regenerate HP while his enemy was stunned for a turn, as Naoto exhaled in concentration. The woman leaned even closer, her body pressing against his, causing Naoto to blush and his eye to twitch. She muttered a frustrated, "Ugh, damn it," as he internally declared he was so close to achieving something in the game. Noticing his reaction, the woman looked at him with concern, asking what was wrong. He quickly dismissed her worries, insisting it was nothing, his focus still primarily on the game. She then recommended he highly consider leveling up a particular monster, to which Naoto enthusiastically agreed, promising to give it his best effort. He remained intensely focused, his eyes glued to the screen of his handheld game console, fingers poised over the controls. Eventually, exhaustion claimed him, and he slumped forward, his head resting against the console as sleep finally took hold. Meanwhile, the woman, Naruko, observed him from a distance, sipping from a can. She pondered the game console and a key, wondering aloud where he could have acquired such an item. The next morning, Naoto's friend, Miho, approached him with concern, asking if he had slept poorly due to his tired appearance. He admitted to playing games excessively the previous day, prompting her to gently warn him against rubbing his eyes, explaining that it would make them red and puffy. Later, Naoto asked Naruko if he could continue borrowing the game console. She readily agreed, reminding him that he still needed to finish the game, and even offered for him to leave it at her house if he grew tired. Naruko then revealed a knowing smirk, admitting she had suspected his intentions. She reminded him that she had already given him a spare key to her house, implying he had free access. At school, Naoto's friend, Shiuda, questioned him about staying up late, asking what he had been doing. Naoto, with a slight blush, confessed that he had been playing a game, specifically Pokemon Battle. Shiuda, surprised by the revelation, pressed him further, asking if someone had bought the console for him, specifically if it was his mother. Naoto quickly denied the suggestion. Shiuda then inquired about his progress in the game, expressing disbelief that Naoto had even brought the console to school. Naoto explained that Naruko had lent it to him, which prompted Shiuda to exclaim that Naruko was practically his mother, not merely his sister. Naoto proudly declared he had made significant progress, while Shiuda, examining the console, noticed what appeared to be a new color or a special collab item. He continued to show his friends the contents of his game console, and Shiuda, impressed, exclaimed about the sheer number of rare monsters Naoto possessed. Naoto clarified that most of them were acquired through trades with Naruko. Shiuda, hearing this, accused Naoto of cheating, calling the situation absurd. Naoto confirmed he had recently engaged in a player-versus-player match against someone named Tanaka, whom he described as a complete novice. Yamada, overhearing the conversation, suggested that if Naruko was involved in trading, Naoto would undoubtedly defeat Tanaka with ease. Following this, Shiyuda, his eyes wide with excitement, eagerly proposed that they all play together. Naoto looked taken aback by the sudden invitation. Shiyuda then added that Naruko had been copying a particularly hardcore deck, implying her skill and the quality of the monsters she traded. Naoto, looking away with a slight blush, warned Shiyuda to go easy on him, claiming he was quite strong. Shiyuda, however, dismissed the notion, stating it was not happening, and expressed his keen interest in finally playing with Naoto, as they had never done so before. Suddenly, Yamada, his face contorted in anger and frustration, loudly challenged Shiyuda, demanding another player versus player match. Shiyuda casually brushed off Yamada's challenge, stating he was going to play Pokemon Battle with Naoto instead. Yamada, still seething, insisted on a fair fight, while Miho, observing the scene, remarked that Yamada was acting overly confident despite his lack of skill. Yamada, in turn, retorted by calling her a cheat. Yamada, still agitated, then turned his attention to Naoto, asking if he played Pokemon Battle. Naoto confirmed he had started playing it recently. Shiyuda quickly interjected, boasting that Naoto possessed a deck far superior to Yamada's. Yamada, with a smirk, acknowledged that Naoto's lineup must be impressive, but then confidently declared that Naoto was terrible at the game. As the argument continued, Miho stepped on Naoto's foot, scolding him for bringing a game console to school. Naoto reacted with a yelp of pain and surprise. Yamada, still angry, pointed at Naoto, agreeing with Miho's sentiment and emphasizing that game consoles should not be brought to school. With a furious expression, Yamada pointed directly at Naoto, issuing a direct challenge for a battle, leaving Naoto looking utterly shocked. He looked shocked as Yamada declared he didn't mind playing against him and Naoto, stating he would take on both of them at his house. However, Shiyuda interjected, clarifying that he would only play with Naoto. Shiyuda agreed to the arrangement, promising to fetch his game console quickly. Yamada, meanwhile, expressed his intense desire to defeat Naoto, warning him not to chicken out. With their plans set, Naoto and Shiyuda departed, with Yamada bidding them farewell until they met at his house. Moments later, Shiyuda arrived home, announcing his return. He paused, noticing something amiss in the living area. He looked around, finding the situation odd, before his gaze landed on Naoto, who was engrossed in playing a game console. A realization dawned on him. The sound was unmistakably from a Pokemon battle. He immediately confronted Naoto, demanding his console back, while Naoto, startled, tried to hold onto it. Shiyuda's eyes widened in horror as he stared at the console, realizing with a gasp that all his precious game data had been deleted. As Naoto walked by, carrying a load of laundry, he heard Shiyuda's anguished wails. Shiyuda, still distraught, demanded his console back, furious that he had been in the middle of a good part of his game. Naoto sharply told him to quiet down, reminding him that Mio was sleeping. Shiyuda, however, argued vehemently that Naoto had messed with his game without permission and deleted his data, making Naoto the one who was clearly in the wrong. Naoto, clenching his fist, dismissed Shiyuda's outburst as childish, stating it was merely a game. He then asserted that the console was his, having been bought for him by their father. Shiyuda, his face contorted with intense anger and betrayal, accused Naoto of favoring him simply because he was their father's son. He moved swiftly, a hand striking out as someone cried out his name. The blow landed, forcing him to cover his face as Naoto, standing nearby, urged him to shield himself. Mio, the younger boy, watched in distress, tears welling in his eyes. Still reeling from the impact, Shiyuda clutched the game console, but it slipped from his grasp and fell to the floor with a dull thud, while Naoto reached out, as if to stop it. He turned his head away, dismissing the situation with a curt, "Whatever," as Naoto watched him, a complex expression on his face. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a girl with light hair stood visibly distressed, clutching her chest. In the background, Naoto offered Mio a snack, to which the younger boy eagerly agreed, while an unseen adult voice remarked that they could continue their tantrum for all they cared. Back at the house, Shiyuta looked up, startled, as Naoto, opening a door with a soft click, asked if he had found it. The girl with light hair, looking apologetic, explained that she couldn't find her game console, and suggested Naoto go to Tanaka's house by himself. He looked on, clearly taken aback by her words. A moment of silence passed between them before Naoto, still processing her statement, softly uttered Shiyuta's name, as if seeking clarification or understanding. They remained standing apart, the distance between them palpable, as the implications of her words settled. She averted her gaze, then slowly sat down on the stairs, her shoulders slumped. Naoto watched her from the bottom of the staircase, a silent observer. With a soft clink of her shoes, she began to descend the steps, leaving him behind. He and his friend continued their search for Tanaka's house, with his companion pointing the way, indicating it was a bit farther ahead. He remarked that he had hardly ever been in this area, noting it was filled with nothing but huge houses belonging to rich people. His friend confirmed the observation. Suddenly, a small chihuahua began to snarl and bark aggressively at a girl with long dark hair, pulling hard on its leash. Its owner, a woman in a visor, struggled to control it, apologizing profusely and wondering what had come over her usually well-behaved dog, named Alice. She, the girl with long dark hair, observed the small dog with an unsettling intensity, remarking to herself how cute the puppy was, so cute that she wanted to eat him right up. However, her demeanor quickly shifted. With a dismissive tsh, she sharply told the struggling woman to get out of her way, callously referring to her as a sack of garbage. The woman, startled, let out a small gasp. Meanwhile, Naoto and his bald friend arrived at Tanaka's house. Naoto wondered why Shiyuta wasn't with them, recalling that Shiyuta had claimed he couldn't find his game console. Tanaka's mother, a kind-looking woman, welcomed them warmly, while Tanaka's father stood nearby, appearing somewhat annoyed, muttering that he bet Shiyuta had simply run away. Inside, Naoto and his bald friend were engrossed in a video game with Yamada, who complained loudly about Naoto pulling special moves on him. Suddenly, a knock came from the door, and Yamada's mother called for him to come for a moment. His mother, Tanaka's mother, explained quietly that a boy who came to hang out with him for the first time was there, referring to Naoto. Yamada, annoyed, questioned why she always brought things to his room, calling it a pain, as she instructed him to take the sweets and juice to his friends and ensure they all ate them. He continued to grumble, asking what a pain it was, and warning that if a mess happened, he would be the one to clean it up. His mother, however, pointed out that Naoto's feet were filthy and would dirty their house, clarifying that she didn't want to be mean to his friends, but it was a concern. Despite the tension, Naoto politely thanked Tanaka's mother as she presented a tray laden with sweets and juice, declaring it's sweets time. Yamada, however, remained fixated on Naoto's dirty feet, internally lamenting how filthy they were and how cleaning up his mess would be a drag, wondering why he had to be nagged at because of this guy. He was engrossed in his handheld game when Yamada suddenly pointed out his feet, declaring them disgustingly dirty. Naoto looked up, startled by the accusation. He quickly apologized, promising to ensure his feet were clean the next time he visited. Yamada, however, remained unimpressed, scolding him for his lack of basic hygiene. Yamada sternly warned him that he would not be allowed into the house again if his feet were dirty. Meanwhile, a woman wearing a visor, who had been observing the exchange, realized she had forgotten to buy socks and shoes. She then noted the impressive size of Yamada's house, musing that it explained his robust physique. Inside the house, Naoto and Miho were engrossed in their game, while Tanaka's mother kindly offered snacks to a group of children, including a small boy, a blonde girl, and a bald boy. Naoto and Yamada continued their game, both intensely focused on their consoles. Suddenly, Yamada slammed his hand down on his console, a clear sign of his mounting frustration. Elsewhere, a woman with long dark hair stood at an ATM, expressing her frustration at a recent loss. She paused, then turned her attention to the machine, noticing something intriguing. She observed a handheld game console displayed for sale, recognizing it as the very same model Naoto possessed. She considered the console's price, noting its considerable expense. Back at the house, Shiuda admitted he still hadn't found his console. Yamada then informed Naoto that they would be meeting at his house again, to which Naoto readily agreed. He listened as Miho assured him she would find the missing item soon, promising they could play together once it was recovered. He expressed his hope that she would indeed find it quickly. She then declared her intention to work hard at leveling up, perhaps in anticipation of their game. As he watched her, she let out a tired yawn, suggesting her search had been extensive and exhausting. Meanwhile, Naoto himself was on his hands and knees, meticulously searching the floor, his expression one of surprise as he pulled at a piece of cloth. Elsewhere, a woman with long, dark hair stood at a store counter, facing a man with glasses who appeared to be an employee. Back in his own space, Naoto continued his desperate search, peering under furniture with a questioning heart. The woman from the store was now seen walking outside, her gaze fixed on something she held in her hands as she moved down the street. Naoto's face was etched with despair, sweat beading on his brow as he cried out that he could not find it. His search led him to peer under a bed, while Miho sat nearby, looking down. He questioned aloud, wondering why the item remained elusive. A young boy, hunched over with his face buried in his hands, was being addressed by an unseen figure. He silently wondered what he should do, the question repeating in his mind. Elsewhere, another young boy with dark hair looked utterly distraught, his eyes wide with panic. He recalled a past confrontation where he was accused of running away from a game the previous day, and was sternly reminded not to forget to come today. Back in a dimly lit room, the first boy lay on a bed, seemingly asleep or unconscious. A woman with long dark hair stood nearby, holding shopping bags, lamenting that she couldn't find the game yesterday. Meanwhile, a spiky-haired boy leaned over the bed, shouting, demanding to know if the boy was listening. His hands, small and delicate, were clasped tightly with another, larger hand, as the conversation continued about the elusive game that could not be found. The young boy with light hair watched as an adult man with a stern expression declared that if it was too much trouble, then it was fine. The dark-haired boy from earlier looked on, startled by the man's words. Later, the light-haired boy sat alone in a lounge, his expression thoughtful and tinged with sadness. He pondered what had happened to his friends, the ones he used to play with constantly. He remained seated at the desk, his gaze fixed on the portable gaming device clutched in his hands. He considered a particular mission within the game, his fingers idly tapping the controls. A woman with long, light-colored hair approached him, offering a warm greeting. She remarked that it was unusual to find him in the lounge, and asked what was wrong. He explained that it was nothing in particular, just that he couldn't play games at home, because his younger brother was a nuisance. She then settled into the chair beside him, her presence a quiet comfort. He continued to hold his gaming device, his attention still on the screen. With a bright smile, she leaned in and asked if the game he was playing was Batman. He looked up, his own face lighting up with surprise and a hint of joy at her recognition. He looked up, surprised, as the woman asked if he knew the game Batman and if he had played it. He confirmed that he had, but specified it was the first generation of the game. Her eyes widened in disbelief at the mention of the first generation, a soft gasp escaping her lips as she considered the implications. She then inquired about the current state of the game, wondering how much the system had changed. He confirmed her suspicion, stating that it was completely different now. With a delighted exclamation, she took the portable gaming device from him, her fingers tracing its surface. She then asked if she could try playing it, and he, still somewhat surprised, agreed. She observed how the game had evolved, noting that the initial monster stats were now randomized, a stark contrast to the fixed stats of the past. She then asked if he no longer played games, to which he replied that he was forbidden from playing at home. A realization dawned on her. The first generation was about 7 years ago, and she wondered if he had moved to the area around that same time. Just then, a woman with short dark hair approached, holding a small boy who clung shyly to her leg. She apologized for the intrusion, introducing herself as Ida, their new neighbor, and gently urged her son, Shokin, to greet Shoyuta. Shoyuta watched the small boy, who remained hidden behind his mother's leg, peeking out cautiously. The woman with long hair, Harumi, smiled warmly at the shy interaction. The small boy, Shokin, finally emerged, calling out Shuta's name. Harumi, kneeling to his level, introduced herself as Harumi, and then asked for his name. Harumi's smile softened, her cheeks flushing slightly as she looked at the children. She gently patted Shuta's head, expressing a heartfelt wish to have a child just like him. Meanwhile, Ida-san, still holding Shokin, inquired if Harumi was a newlywed. Harumi's thoughts, however, drifted back to a distant memory, 7 years ago. Her mind drifted back 7 years, to a time when a younger version of herself, a girl with light hair, excitedly played a game. Beside her, a young boy with light hair, who resembled Shoyuta, watched intently. In the background, an adult man and woman were present, while another young boy, Naoto, cradled a baby, Mio. The younger Harumi spoke of the joy of having a younger sibling. As she spoke, the young Shuta-like boy looked down, a troubled expression on his face, contemplating what it would be like to be an only child. The younger Harumi, still holding her game controller, then turned to him, asking if he too wished for a child. The memories shifted, now focusing on young Naoto Saito, who walked away from a house with a backpack, his face etched with distress. The adult Harumi watched him, a game cartridge in her hand, wondering how he could have lost the game he had borrowed. Naoto continued his walk, tears welling in his eyes, while the adult Harumi looked on with a pained expression. The memory then narrowed, isolating the young Shuta-like boy in a dark, circular void, emphasizing his solitude. The adult Harumi, now in a swimsuit and holding a game controller, mused internally about how pitiful someone looked when they cried. She held a small doll, remarking that even in their sadness, they were still cute. Meanwhile, young Naoto was again seen walking away from a house, prompting Harumi to wonder if his older sister was not home. Moments later, young Naoto stood at a door, a look of relief washing over his face. As the young Harumi looked down, young Naoto reached out, his hand extended. The adult Harumi, now smiling warmly, held a game and asked if he wanted to play. A woman with long dark hair, her back to the viewer, apologized to the young boy, Naoto, asking if he could level up alone for a while. He stood before her, his head bowed, a visible drop of sweat tracing his cheek. As she spoke, a sinister smile crept across her face. Her eyes narrowed with a chilling intensity as she reiterated the idea of him leveling up by himself. Naoto's eyes widened in distress, a cold dread washing over him. She leaned in close, her face inches from his, her expression still unsettlingly warm as she promised they would play together again later. He remained silent, his face etched with a profound sense of unease. Elsewhere, a boy named Shoyuta angrily confronted another boy, demanding to know if he still didn't have his game. The other boy, looking away, mumbled that he hadn't found it yet. Shota's fury escalated as he turned his accusations towards Naoto, claiming he had copied his game. He declared Naoto the worst and vowed never to invite him to play again. Naoto, caught in the crossfire, could only stare in shock and hurt. Later, Naoto stood alone, his gaze fixed on the ground, the weight of his friend's words heavy upon him. In the distance, Shota's voice echoed, still insisting on the need to level up. Meanwhile, a different woman with long, light-colored hair, smoking a cigarette, observed a small boy sleeping. She then turned to Naoto, asking if he was the boy's mother, and then inquired if he had brought the game. She let out a cheerful laugh, remarking on how recent games sold for a high price, and thanked Naoto for his help. A chilling realization dawned on Naoto, his game had been sold. The woman, still smiling, tried to reassure him, promising that it was fine because she would buy him a replacement. Naoto could only utter a stunned sound. She continued, explaining that the money would increase soon, and she would absolutely buy him a new one. Naoto looked from her to the sleeping small boy, his expression a mixture of shock and profound sadness, as the weight of his circumstances settled upon him. 3 days later, Naoto's mother laughed dismissively, stating that it was impossible to buy back the game and offering a casual, almost flippant apology for the situation. His eyes, wide with shock and disbelief, reflected the crushing weight of her words, a silent testament to his profound distress. He confronted her, asking if she truly meant she couldn't buy it back. She, however, dismissed his concern, reiterating that it was impossible because she had no money, and then, with a slight smirk, denied ever saying absolutely impossible. As he stood over her, his mother continued to laugh, suggesting he could just borrow or copy the game from the girl next door, adding that she was fond of him anyway. His face contorted in a mix of shock and disgust at her casual suggestion. He turned away, his mind reeling, realizing with a heavy heart that the game was truly gone and would never return. Later, as he walked with his backpack, he noticed Miho approaching him, her presence a sudden interruption to his troubled thoughts. She smiled at him from the doorway, while he looked back with a questioning expression, still burdened by his earlier distress. Miho then revealed that she had a present for him, causing him to look up in surprise, a faint blush on his cheeks as he wondered what she meant. With a wide, beaming smile, she presented him with a pair of new shoes, his eyes widening in astonishment and a glimmer of hope. She explained that she had bought them because she thought they would suit him, and then added, with a touch of excitement, that she was happy to buy him shoes that match. Though she had just presented him with new shoes, Naoto was overwhelmed with tears, his face contorted in anguish. He tried to wipe away the stream of tears, but they continued to fall as he struggled to articulate his feelings. He continued to weep, explaining that he had searched diligently for his game, but it was nowhere to be found. He couldn't locate it no matter how hard he tried. His voice hitched as he apologized, lamenting that his sister had lent him such an expensive item, and now it was gone. Miho watched him, her expression unreadable. As Naoto continued to blame himself, Miho extended a hand towards him, reassuring him that he was not at fault. She insisted that his mother was the one who was truly angry. She then pulled him into a comforting embrace, her gentle smile a stark contrast to his tear-streaked face. He buried his face against her, still overwhelmed with emotion. As she held him, Miho calmly stated that a game could always be bought again. She then promised that they would raise their level together once more. He responded with a soft affirmation, finding solace in her words and her embrace. Her arm remained around him, a silent reassurance. With a chillingly wide smile, Miho cradled his head in her hands, her eyes wide and intense as she reiterated that everything would be all right. Her expression, however, suggested a deeper, more unsettling intent. A young boy stands before a row of doors, his backpack slung over his shoulder. He holds a key, a faint blush on his cheeks, as if contemplating something significant. He then inserts the key into a lock, the metallic click echoing softly. He enters a room, his back to the viewer, as a tall figure with long dark hair stands nearby, partially obscured. He announces his return home, greeted by his older sister, who welcomes him with a bright smile. She wears a headband, a white long-sleeve top, and dark leggings. She asks him about his day at school, to which he replies that nothing particularly noteworthy happened. She then excitedly tells him that today's snack will be hotcakes, causing him to exclaim in surprise and delight. He blushes, expressing his excitement for the hotcakes, mentioning he's never had anything like them before, only convenience store food. His sister gently touches his cheek, asking if something is on his face. She leans closer, her fingers still on his cheek, remarking that he has a cute little dimple. She then adds that he's been eating well lately, and it's fine for him to eat a lot without holding back. Her expression shifts, a playful, almost predatory look in her eyes as she declares that he looks so delicious. She could just eat him up. She lunges forward, her mouth wide open, seemingly attempting to bite him. He recoils, startled, his own mouth agape in shock. He sweats profusely, a look of sheer terror on his face, realizing he might actually be eaten. His eyes widen in horror as a hand reaches towards him, the shadow of his sister looming over him. He flinched, still reeling from his sister's playful threat, but she merely smiled, her expression softening. She then suggested they play a game of life today. He let out a sigh of relief, admitting he truly thought he was going to be eaten. She chuckled softly, acknowledging his fear with a knowing look. His attention then shifted to a peculiar device hovering nearby, its propellers gently spinning. He asked what it was, and she promptly identified it as a drone. He was astonished, questioning if it was truly a drone and not just a remote-controlled toy. She explained that it was a high-performance device, far more advanced than a simple RC, capable of being used for professional tasks like sowing seeds. He gasped in amazement at its capabilities. He then observed the controller, noting its resemblance to a game console. She confirmed that operating it was simple, like playing a game. The drone ascended, its 4 propellers whirring rapidly as it took to the sky. Meanwhile, in the neighborhood below, an elderly woman walking her small dog looked up, startled by the drone's presence. She wondered aloud which child was flying such a device in the middle of the street, speculating it might be from the Tanaka household. She continued to watch the drone, her expression one of mild concern, while a nearby man scowled, clearly annoyed by the buzzing sound. He grumbled that it was probably a child from that house. The drone soared over the rooftops and gardens, its lights faintly visible against the darkening sky, surveying the residential area below. From a different vantage, a pair of hands expertly manipulated a game-like controller, the screen displaying the drone's perspective. A message of GG appeared, signaling the end of the flight. A figure in a wide-brimmed hat looked on with a gasp of surprise, her eyes wide with disbelief. She knelt among the foliage, examining a patch of mint that had seemingly appeared from nowhere, questioning how it could have grown without being planted. Later, indoors, she smiled warmly, offering a refill of a drink, her earlier bewilderment replaced by a cheerful demeanor. She then presented a stack of fluffy pancakes, topped with butter and syrup, to Nikan, who gazed at the delicious treat with wide-eyed excitement. He eagerly prepared to dig in, holding his fork and knife with a newfound sense of readiness, his face beaming with anticipation. As he began to eat, she remarked on his improved skill with the utensils, to which he responded with a shy, pleased expression. She continued to enjoy her own meal, taking a bite with a satisfied expression. He closed his eyes, savoring the rich, sweet flavor of the pancakes, a blissful expression spreading across his face. He exclaimed that the pancakes were incredibly fluffy and sweet, far surpassing anything from a convenience store, and she offered him more syrup. As he continued to eat, she leaned in playfully, licking a streak of syrup from his cheek, leaving him wide-eyed and surprised by her sudden, affectionate gesture. He looked up, startled and blushing, as his sister leaned in close, a mischievous smile playing on her lips. She declared that it was truly sweet. Still flustered by her proximity, he could only manage a soft agreement. She chuckled at his reaction, and then he confessed that after indulging in something sweet, he desired something else entirely. In response, she presented him with a small dish of mint ice cream, asking if such a cool treat would be perfect after the warmth of the pancakes. He stared, wide-eyed and surprised by her offering. She then explained that the mint leaves themselves were what gave the dessert its distinct, slightly sour taste. He listened, intrigued by this new detail. His sister continued, elaborating on the fascinating nature of mint. She described how it grows rampantly everywhere, possessing an incredibly strong scent and rooting with remarkable ease. She added that it could even choke out other plants, making it difficult for them to thrive. With a thoughtful expression, she mused aloud about the implications of planting it everywhere. He watched her, utterly amazed by her knowledge. Nakin, engrossed in his video game, struggles to keep his eyes open. Wanazan, noticing his fatigue, gently asks if he is sleepy. He gives a tired affirmation. She then takes his hand, suggesting it is time for him to go to bed, reminding him that children need their rest. He looks up at her, surprised by her sudden action. Moments later, they are lying together in bed. Wanazan leans in close, whispering something to him, causing his face to flush with embarrassment. Her leg rests casually over his. He attempts to speak, his words catching in his throat as her backside presses intimately against him. Her leg continues to shift against him, creating an uncomfortable friction. He tries again to voice his confusion, asking what she is doing. He subtly tries to push her away, his discomfort evident in his posture. His face burns crimson as he feels a strange sensation, while she smiles slyly, covering her mouth with her hand. They are now spooning, her body pressed against his. She gently strokes his ear, reassuring him that he can relax and sleep, promising to wake him when the time comes. Despite her words, he remains wide awake and flustered, protesting that it is impossible for him to sleep in such a situation. Eventually, exhaustion claims him, and he drifts off to sleep, a small trail of drool escaping his mouth. Wanazan watches him, a soft expression on her face, thinking to herself that he is still just a child and far too cute. She leaned in close, her dark hair falling around his face as he lay still, his lips slightly parted. Moments later, she lay beside him, her back turned, seemingly asleep, while he rested on his side, his face obscured. Her hand extended, fingers splayed, reaching out into the empty space. Suddenly, he jolted awake, his eyes wide with alarm, a hand instinctively raised as if to ward off an unseen threat. He recoiled, pushing away from something unseen, his mind racing with a panicked thought. Dangerous. I almost did it. His legs flailed as he tried to escape. Peeking cautiously from beneath the covers, he muttered to himself, "It's still too early." A vivid memory or dream flashed through his mind. She was cheerfully taking photos of him as he slept, even holding up a peace sign. Then later, she was looking at the pictures on her phone, remarking that since she went to the trouble, she might as well take them. He saw her standing over him, then leaving the room. His eyes slowly opened, a glint of awareness returning. He stirred, stretching languidly, then looked around the room with a sleepy gaze before settling back down, seemingly still half asleep. He finally sat up, rubbing his eyes, as she stood by the window, turning to ask if he was awake. He stirred, hearing Wanazan's voice inform him that breakfast would take a little longer, and he could continue resting if he wished. Moments later, he sat up in bed, his gaze fixed on Wanazan's silhouette as she moved about the kitchen. Soon, a full meal of rice, tonkatsu, miso soup, and side dishes was laid out before them. Before eating, they both clasped their hands in gratitude. Wanazan then remarked that the pumpkin stew was delicious, but Nyakan still needed to wash up. After finishing his meal, he felt a comfortable fullness. Wanazan thanked him for the meal as he held his empty plate. With the meal concluded, she then asked him if he wanted to take a bath. He responded with an enthusiastic affirmation, his face lighting up. Her expression shifted to a playful smirk as she leaned in, suggesting they take a bath together. His face immediately flushed crimson with embarrassment. He quickly recoiled, vehemently declaring that he would go alone, insisting he was not a child. Wanazan simply smiled, telling him to take his time. Elsewhere, a hand crushed a cigarette into a metal ashtray. A nearby phone displayed the time, 1:35. The woman sat amidst a clutter of trash bags, a cigarette held between her fingers, her thoughts drifting to someone she realized was absent. She then lay sprawled on the floor, still holding her phone, wondering if she should bring something that might sell. A woman, visibly distressed, held a phone to her ear, listening intently as the voice on the other end chastised her for not answering calls. The caller pressed her about her marriage and efforts to have children, questioning why she, nearing 30, had not yet conceived. The woman internally acknowledged the pressure but yearned for the freedom to make her own choices, to live life on her own terms. She continued the conversation, her expression a mix of resignation and frustration. The caller mentioned a meeting regarding the mansion, to which the woman responded with a vague acknowledgement, suggesting she had been busy with other matters. She finally hung up the phone, her hand lingering on the receiver, a heavy sigh escaping her lips. She then leaned against a wall, her eyes closed, as if trying to compose herself or escape the weight of the recent conversation. Suddenly, the apartment door was violently kicked inward, the lock mechanism shattering into pieces as the force of the impact reverberated through the frame. Moments later, a man with short, dark hair and glasses entered the apartment, closing the damaged door behind him with a soft click. As he entered, the woman greeted him, asking if he was home. She then quickly confessed that she had torn the cushion they had just bought and asked if she could purchase a new one. He looked at her with a slight frown, seemingly unimpressed by her admission. She continued, explaining that his mother-in-law had called again, lecturing her about having children. She suggested they simply ignore her, implying that her constant nagging was tiresome. The man averted his gaze, a subtle tension in his posture. She then offered him dinner, mentioning it was ready before his bath. He replied curtly that he had already eaten and did not need it. She looked at him, a subtle expression of disappointment or resignation on her face. She inquired again if he was going to take a bath. He confirmed he was and told her to go ahead, as he settled onto a couch, turning his attention away from her. The woman, still reeling from the day's events, sought solace in the shower, letting the warm water wash over her. After her shower, she began to dry her hair, her expression still heavy with thought. As she prepared to dress, her gaze fell upon a delicate piece of lace underwear, a faint blush rising to her cheeks. Dressed in a simple robe, she approached the bedroom where her husband lay in bed, engrossed in a book, seemingly oblivious to her presence. A deep blush spread across her face as she hesitated, her eyes cast downwards. Gathering her courage, she reached out, gently touching his arm and softly calling his name. She looked at him with a hopeful, flushed expression, suggesting that tonight, after a long time, might be a good opportunity for them to be intimate. He abruptly pulled his hand away, stating firmly that he was not in the mood, adding that they were both tired and past the age for such things. Her face contorted in a mixture of shock and profound hurt. With a quiet click, she closed the bedroom door, standing alone in the hallway, her head bowed in silent despair, murmuring an apology for bothering him when he was tired. Retreating to another room, she retrieved a pair of scissors and, with a decisive snip, began to cut the delicate lace underwear she had considered wearing, rendering it useless. The act was a stark symbol of her wasted hopes. She stared into the darkness, a profound sense of foolishness washing over her, her face etched with self-reproach. Moments later, a young boy called out, addressing her as Harumi-san, his voice breaking the silence. He excitedly told her about catching a super rare item, but she remained distant, her expression still clouded with distress. She averted her gaze, then looked back with a pained expression, prompting him to ask if something was wrong. He continued, admitting he didn't know what had happened, but clearly worried about her. He insisted that Harumi-san was definitely not a bad person, his words a sincere attempt to comfort her. Harumi-san smiled, acknowledging his words, saying that even without knowing the details, he understood she wasn't bad. He apologized for not understanding, but she reassured him, expressing her gratitude and happiness for his kindness. Her hand, adorned with a ring, gently reached out to touch his hair. She gently stroked his head, a wistful thought crossing her mind about how good it would be if Shiriko and were a child. He wondered how many years it had been since someone had gently stroked his head, and then pondered if he had ever made that older sister feel such warmth. Meanwhile, Harumi-san sat by the window, her earlier despair seemingly replaced by a quiet contemplation. A younger Naikin sat at a school desk, his gaze directed towards a figure standing in the doorway. He quietly confessed a profound desire, stating that he had wanted to be Harumi-san's child. A woman with long light hair, Harumi-san walked down the apartment hallway, her eyes closed in a serene expression. From a slightly ajar door, a young boy, Naokin, peeked out and offered a polite greeting. Meanwhile, a hand gripped a pen, the individual's thoughts drifting to a child named Shoyuta, who was apparently under their care. As Harumi-san continued her conversation with a man in the hallway, he questioned her, asking if she would play games with him, noting that she was an adult. He then added that Shoyuta was just a child. He further elaborated that children's games were not for adults like her, and mentioned that Shoyuta still desired his mother's attention. The man then stated he was busy and did not wish to be bothered, to which Harumi-san simply acknowledged his words. Harumi-san, with a slight bow, thanked him for his concern regarding the child. As she walked away, her hand clenched into a tight fist, her thoughts consumed by the question of why a child was in such a house. Meanwhile, Nakin stood with Wani-san and another boy, who suggested they play Patamon again. Wani-san, holding a small item, happily announced that she had found what Nakin was looking for after searching the house. Nakin then asked if they could play at Tanaka's house, but Wani-san informed him that Tanaka had already gone home. He explained that his mother had suddenly returned home, preventing him from playing there, a revelation that surprised his friends. Since he couldn't play at his own house, Wani-san suggested they play in the lounge. Another boy questioned if they were not allowed to play there. As Nakin and Wani-san descended the stairs, he explained that they could play there, but would likely be scolded if they made too much noise. Wani-san then asked if he went there often, to which he replied, sometimes. He and Wani-san sat in the lounge, engrossed in their handheld game, while the elderly woman nearby expressed her displeasure, finding their presence a nuisance. The elderly woman continued her stern admonishment, telling them to quiet down. Nakin, however, was more concerned with his game, lamenting that he had lost yet again. She reiterated that this was no place for games, emphasizing that the children were being far too loud and disruptive. Elsewhere, Harumi-san offered a warm, welcoming smile and a wave, acknowledging someone named Kawa-san. Soon after, Nakin and Wani-san arrived at a residence, where a young boy stood at the entrance. Nakin hesitated, asking if it was truly all right for them to impose. Inside, Harumi-san apologized to the elderly woman for her tardiness, explaining she had been delayed waiting for someone. She then playfully chided Wani-san, suggesting that such reserved behavior was usually her own line to deliver. Nakin looked on, a surprised expression on his face as a thought crossed his mind. Harumi-san seemed almost like an older sister to him. Meanwhile, a different young girl, her face obscured by long dark hair, was offered snacks. She seemed to consider the offer a hint of curiosity in her eyes. A mysterious girl remained in the shadows, her thoughts turning dark. She pondered that woman, wondering why she was not at her own house, and questioned if Harumi-san was truly normal. Her internal turmoil manifested as a distorted, unsettling image. Back in the lounge, Nakin, Wani-san, and the young boy from the entrance were now comfortably seated on cushions, enjoying their games and drinks together. He continued to focus intently on his game, while Wani-san, holding a console, confessed to the boy beside her that she had been secretly watching Shitaku in play and had developed a strong desire to try it herself. She then expressed surprise, noting that Harumi-san had also begun playing Batman. Simultaneously, the distinct sound of footsteps echoed as someone descended the stairs. He, still looking surprised, questioned when they had become such close friends. Suddenly, the doorbell rang insistently, pulling her attention away. She hurried to answer, calling out that she was coming. As she opened the door to reveal Harumi-san, she noticed something amiss with the game monitor, wondering aloud why it was completely dark. As Wani-san reacted with a gasp, the mysterious girl appeared, holding a tray with a cup, her smile wide and unsettling. She greeted them softly, but her internal thoughts were far more sinister. "Nakin, you're here, aren't you?" A woman with long, dark hair and a distinctive knitted top stood at the threshold of a doorway, a slight smile playing on her lips. Inside, another woman with light, messy hair looked at her with a questioning expression, asking who she was. Harumi-san felt a sudden jolt of recognition as she looked at the newcomer's legs. She realized she had seen this person before, a memory from a past encounter flashing through her mind, though she struggled to recall the exact details. Before Harumi-san could fully process the memory, the woman with dark hair lunged forward, grabbing her arm with surprising force. She then positioned herself protectively in front of Harumi-san, blocking the doorway. Harumi-san, still reeling from the sudden action, could only stare in confusion as the woman declared that she was in the way. Harumi-san gasped, her eyes wide with shock and disbelief at the woman's aggressive behavior. Moments later, the woman with dark hair had entered the house, and Harumi-san, now inside, looked back towards the doorway. A young boy, Nakin, appeared, calling out to his Onizan in surprise, asking why she was there. The woman with dark hair simply smiled, seemingly pleased with her unexpected arrival. Harumi-san turned to face the newcomer, her expression still a mix of confusion and discomfort. The woman, however, maintained her cheerful smile, seemingly oblivious to the tension. In the background, Nakin and Wani-san watched the interaction, Wani-san remarking on the woman's strong presence. The woman then formally introduced herself as Naoko, stating that she lived next door to Nakin and often played with him. Harumi-san, still looking somewhat overwhelmed, offered a polite but hesitant acknowledgement. Naoko, with a bright, eager smile, then asked if she could join them in playing. Harumi-san, caught off guard by the direct request, quickly agreed, inviting her to join. Naoko expressed immense relief, admitting she had worried about being rejected due to her abruptness. Harumi-san, still processing the whirlwind of events, could only offer a nervous laugh. She quickly settled into the group, playing a handheld game alongside Nakin, Harumi-san, and Wani-san. Nakin, observing her, expressed a quiet relief, noting that she seemed surprisingly normal. Moments later, she exclaimed with a wide smile that she had lost to Nakin, praising his strength. He looked back at her, a blush creeping onto his cheeks, clearly flustered by her enthusiastic declaration. As the game concluded, Wani-san, holding her own device, asked if she could play next. Naoko, still beaming, readily agreed, inviting her to join the fun. Meanwhile, Harumi-san, who had been observing, found her gaze drawn downwards, a small, internal thought echoing Nakin's earlier observation about her impressive physique. Nakin, still blushing, averted his eyes, while Harumi-san, now smiling, openly commented that she had never seen anything quite so large. Suddenly, Nakin interjected, pushing Harumi-san away from Naoko with a protective gesture. Naoko looked on, a hint of surprise on her face. He continued to push Harumi-san, firmly telling her not to monopolize Naoko. Harumi-san protested his actions, while Wani-san continued to play her game, seemingly oblivious to the minor squabble. Wani-san then celebrated her victory, exclaiming that she had barely won and that Naoko was indeed strong. Nakin readily agreed, while Harumi-san looked on with a mix of surprise and a slight frown, before Naoko offered her a gentle smile. Harumi-san took her turn, playing with intense focus as Nakin and Wani-san cheered her on. Naoko, however, advised her to play gently, a comment that left Harumi-san looking utterly shocked. Harumi-san trembled, utterly defeated and bewildered. She realized with dismay that she hadn't won even once, having been completely overwhelmed in a one-turn kill. Naoko, meanwhile, watched her with a triumphant, knowing smile. Naoko, still beaming from her victory, held a piece of paper, while Harumi-san, visibly sweating, looked at her with a mix of apprehension and confusion. Naoko remarked that she felt a great malice, prompting Harumi-san to nervously ask if she had done something wrong. Harumi-san, now kneeling in defeat, suggested that Naoko's win was merely luck and proposed another match. Naoko, however, politely declined, stating she was content. Harumi-san then conceded, acknowledging Naoko's surprising dexterity with her hands. Moments later, a beautifully crafted pie with a lattice crust was presented to the group. Both Naoko and Harumi-san gazed up at the dessert with wide-eyed wonder and excitement. Naokin, seeing the pie, eagerly asked if Wanazan had made it. She confirmed that she had, explaining that she had bought the ingredients specifically for the occasion. Harumi-san expressed surprise, noting that Wanazan always prepared homemade snacks. Naokin, impatient, urged everyone to eat quickly, while Naoko requested to borrow the kitchen. As Naoko entered the kitchen, she picked up a knife to cut the pie. She observed that the blade was not particularly sharp, but she resolved to make do with it. While in the kitchen, Naoko surveyed the array of spices. She noted that the stove appeared to be rarely used, yet there was an abundance of seasonings, some of which she recognized as frequently used. She found the contrast between the unused stove and the well-stocked spices to be quite peculiar. Later, Naoko was seen tasting a small portion of food, contemplating what kind of elaborate meal she should prepare next. The group, including Naoko, Naokin, Harumi-san, and Wanazan, sat together, enjoying their meal. Suddenly, a distinct sound came from the door, causing Harumi-san to look up, startled. Despite the interruption, Harumi-san and Wanazan continued to eat, both exclaiming how incredibly delicious the food was. Harumi-san continued to praise Naoko's cooking, declaring it truly wonderful and delicious. Naoko, looking a little bashful, humbly admitted that she was not very skilled in the kitchen. Naokin and Wanazan also expressed their heartfelt thanks and enjoyment. She smiled warmly, her expression suggesting a slight pause or question. As she spoke, just a moment. Meanwhile, Harumi-san, looking surprised, was asked by Wanazan if she always made sweets. Harumi-san questioned if she meant here, but Naokin, still eating, pointed out that something was on her left side. As Naokin finished his thought, Naoko looked at him with a gentle smile, remarking how nice it was. She then playfully asked if he was jealous. His eyes widened in surprise as he suddenly found himself pressed against her leg. She pulled him closer, embracing him warmly, and asking if they were very close. He responded with a shy affirmation, and she continued, teasing that perhaps they were even closer than that, pressing him gently against her. Harumi-san pondered the nature of their friendship, sensing a divergence in their paths. Meanwhile, Naokin and the other boys gazed intently, their expressions filled with an almost palpable adoration. He averted his gaze, a blush creeping onto his cheeks. As Harumi-san remained in the background, her expression tinged with a quiet melancholy. As the boys prepared to depart, Naokin and his friends thanked Harumi-san for her hospitality, with Boy 1 enthusiastically declaring that he had a lot of fun. She watched them go, her brow furrowed in a silent question directed at Boy 1. Harumi-san then offered a warm smile, inviting him to play together again. He responded with an enthusiastic affirmation, promising to return. She leaned in closer, her voice firm as she advised him that it would be better to stop if his feelings were half-hearted. He stared back, utterly stunned by her words. Moments later, Naokin called out to Naoko, who responded with a cheerful yes from the doorway. Harumi-san stood by the door, observing Naoko and the boys. Naoko instructed Naokin to go home and continue what they were doing, while Harumi-san watched, a puzzled expression on her face. Later, Harumi-san sat alone on a couch, her thoughts consumed by Naoko's earlier words. She wondered about their true meaning, a sense of unease settling over her. Her contemplation was interrupted by the arrival of Man 2, who greeted her as he entered. She looked up, startled by his sudden appearance. She looked down at the young boy sitting on the floor, apologizing for being a bit distracted. Just then, the man returned home, asking who had been there. He confronted her, demanding to know what was happening. She explained that neighborhood children had been playing, but something about the situation felt strange. He questioned her, repeating the word, children, with a hint of disbelief. His anger flared, his voice rising as he demanded to know if she was aware of his intense dislike for children, yet still invited them into their home. He continued his tirade, gesturing towards the scattered items and the game console, accusing her of not cleaning up, and even questioning if she had purchased the game herself. She stared back, utterly stunned by his outburst. Without waiting for a response, he ordered her to prepare his meal and draw his bath. She stood silently, clutching a towel, while the young boy remained seated on the floor, a silent witness to the escalating tension. Her hands trembled, and the towel slipped from her grasp, falling to the floor with a soft thud. She bent down, retrieving the fallen towel, and slowly brought it to her face, inhaling deeply. She continued to breathe in the scent from the fabric, her eyes closed in a moment of quiet absorption. Her eyes opened, wide and troubled, as she held the towel close. It was not her own scent, she realized, but a good one, a comforting aroma that seemed to offer a momentary reprieve from her distress. Later, she sat alone in a dimly lit, cluttered room, surrounded by discarded snack wrappers. He had not returned home today either, she thought, wondering what was truly happening. She sat, smoking, her eyes scanning the screen of her phone. A news article caught her attention, prompting a soft, disbelieving murmur about the state of the world. The article detailed the arrest of a 23-year-old unemployed woman for inviting elementary school children into her home, with the suspect claiming she merely wanted to play with them. The police were reportedly investigating the full circumstances. Meanwhile, a door slid open, revealing Naoko waving goodbye to Naoko and the mysterious girl with long, dark hair. As Naoko departed, the mysterious girl turned and walked away, leaving Naoko with a subtle, knowing smile. Later, Harumi-san greeted a schoolgirl, remarking on how Naoto always looked after her. The schoolgirl responded politely, acknowledging the sentiment. Harumi-san continued, her expression growing more serious as she warned the schoolgirl about recent incidents, specifically mentioning the unemployed woman arrested for luring children. She implied that if the schoolgirl failed to understand the gravity of the situation, her mother might be taken away. As Harumi-san spoke, Naoko watched from a distance, a sinister smile spreading across her face. She mused that while she wouldn't be unreasonable, that time was paramount. She then added, almost as an aside, that if Harumi-san truly liked Naoto, she could have him. The blonde woman, standing outside an apartment door, questioned the dark-haired girl inside, asking what would happen if she were to say something different. The girl, with a calm demeanor, simply responded, and then, as the conversation continued, she pushed the door open further, expressing frustration that the dark-haired girl was too slow to react. She gestured with her hands, urging her to move. Without waiting for an invitation, she continued to push her way into the apartment, remarking that the dark-haired girl seemed to be catching on. She then suggested they talk inside, implying the conversation would be lengthy. Yielding to the insistence, the dark-haired girl, now fully inside her apartment, held the door open, offering a polite, "Please come in." Below, the blonde woman entered, her expression unreadable, a slight smirk playing on her lips. Once inside, the dark-haired girl invited her to sit down and offered to make tea. The blonde woman looked around, commenting that the place was surprisingly clean for an old man's residence. Naoko sat quietly on the floor in the background. Ignoring the offer of a seat, she casually sat on the floor, leaning back against the wall, telling the dark-haired girl not to worry about her and to take her time. She praised the girl's attitude. Moments later, she pulled out a cigarette and lit it, exhaling smoke. She then requested coffee if possible. Before she could fully enjoy her cigarette, the dark-haired girl pointed a finger at her, then pointed to Naoko, who was sitting on the floor, and stated that smoking was prohibited there. Taken aback by the sudden admonition, the blonde woman looked surprised, her mouth agape, as the dark-haired girl smiled brightly, and explained that she herself did not smoke. She then made a gesture, as if flicking something away, telling the blonde woman to refrain from smoking. With a cheerful demeanor, the dark-haired girl smiled, remarking that the blonde woman seemed to be a bit off in the head. She then suggested they get to the main topic. The blonde woman looked distressed in the background, while Naoko observed. She, having just suggested they discuss the main topic, now directly asked the mysterious woman if they were talking about money. The woman, with a knowing smile, confirmed that she had already figured that out. The mysterious woman then held up 3 fingers, indicating a specific sum, and inquired if that amount was acceptable. The schoolgirl looked on, seemingly considering the offer. After a brief moment, the schoolgirl agreed to the sum, but quickly added that the woman should wait. She then stood up, urging the woman to hurry. The schoolgirl returned, carrying a large box filled with stacks of money, topped with a small doll. She remarked that it was only 5 kaki. The mysterious woman watched her, her bare foot resting casually. The schoolgirl extended a hand, offering a stack of bills to the mysterious woman, stating that even this amount was cheap for Naoko, and she didn't understand its true value. The woman's hand reached out to accept. The mysterious woman, now holding the money, looked at the schoolgirl with a slight smirk. The schoolgirl, having changed into a different outfit, stood by the bed, announcing that she had kept the woman waiting and urging her to hurry. The schoolgirl, now sitting on the floor with her legs spread, held a stack of bills between her toes, offering them to the mysterious woman with a wide, confident smile. The woman looked down, seemingly surprised or questioning the gesture. A tense silence filled the room as the schoolgirl sat on the coffee table, her bare feet resting near the mysterious woman, who remained seated on the couch. The mysterious woman, her expression hardening, demanded to know what the schoolgirl was playing at. Her eyes narrowed in suspicion. The schoolgirl, however, maintained her composure, stating that if the woman didn't want the money, it was fine. The woman's foot recoiled slightly from the schoolgirl's touch. The schoolgirl, with a confident, almost taunting smile, asserted that she understood the situation, especially since she was the one paying. She then asked if she would be forgiven for this. The mysterious woman glared back, clutching the money tightly, her face contorted in anger, still asserting her dominance. The schoolgirl offered a final, polite yet firm, "Please, come again." The mysterious woman, her face shadowed and unreadable, remained silent, her expression one of deep unease. Retreating from the unsettling encounter, the mysterious woman entered a dimly lit room. Her thoughts raced, acknowledging the schoolgirl's words about the money being in that room and realizing the girl was truly crazy. She also recalled that Nakan held the key to that house. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a young boy named Naoto, or Nakan, burst with joy, his face alight with a wide smile. He declared his readiness to play a game today. He was surrounded by his friends, who seemed to be in high spirits. One of them, Tanaka, asked if he wanted to invite someone else to play. Nakan, still beaming, confirmed that Harumi-san might also play with them today. His friend observed that Nakan seemed to be in a good mood because of her. As he ascended a flight of outdoor stairs, Nakan spotted Harumi-san and enthusiastically called out her name, waving to her. Harumi-san, her back initially turned, paused and slowly began to turn her head, her expression unreadable. She looked down at Nakan, her gaze distant and melancholic. He, in turn, looked up at her, a flicker of surprise crossing his face as he registered her unusual demeanor. Nakan walked alongside the mysterious girl, asking if she had heard anything. She averted her gaze, pondering if it was true, despite their eyes having met moments before. He then inquired if she was leaving her backpack behind, noting her apparent unwellness. Surprised by her state, he then left his own backpack. Upon entering a room, Nakan found the mysterious woman, Harumi-san, sitting casually on the floor, a cigarette held between her fingers. She greeted him with a warm, welcoming smile. She leaned in close to him, her expression intense, remarking that it felt like a long time since she had seen his face. He looked surprised by her proximity and words. Her expression then shifted, becoming more menacing as she splayed her fingers, as if to grab him, warning that he would be scolded for not coming home properly at night. He recoiled in fear. She continued, stating that she knew he had been sneaking into the neighbor's house. Still startled, he tried to deny it, but she playfully ruffled his hair. She then advised him to get along with the neighbor, while he wondered if she always carried a key. Standing now, she told him to be quiet because she was feeling good. He looked at her with a questioning, slightly bewildered expression. He then asked Harumi-san where they should play, mentioning that he had been scolded for being in the lounge before. She looked at him, then down the stairs, seemingly considering his question. As they stood on the stairs, Naoko appeared, asking Harumi-san what she was doing there. Naoko quickly explained that they had nowhere to play games. Naoko's face lit up with a wide smile, suggesting they play at her house instead. Naoko and Harumi-san reacted with surprise and delight at the unexpected invitation. She had invited Naoko and Harumi-san to her house, where they now sat around a low table, enjoying snacks and playing a handheld game. Naoko, munching on a pastry, remarked that Harumi-san had been playing with them yesterday as well. Noting how delicious today's snack looked, she smiled, suggesting that Naokon's current deck combination in the game was not very strong. Harumi-san, also smiling, agreed with her assessment, finding the combination meaningless. Meanwhile, Naokon excused himself to use the toilet, leaving the two women to continue their game. Harumi-san, still focused on the screen, seemed to be enjoying herself. As he left, Harumi-san turned to Naoko, her expression curious, and asked if she and Naoto were truly close. Naoko confirmed it with a knowing smile. Harumi-san then looked down, her gaze fixed on something beneath her clothing. Her hand moved, subtly lifting her skirt to reveal delicate lace underwear. A blush spread across Harumi-san's face, her eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and embarrassment, as she let out a small gasp. She held a small, stitched doll between her legs, nestled against her underwear, a peculiar sight that seemed to have caught her off guard. Her eyes widened further, a look of profound shock and realization dawning upon her face. Naoko, now holding the doll herself, smiled brightly and declared that they were indeed very, very close. Harumi-san's eyes widened in utter disbelief, her face contorted in shock at Naoko's declaration. She stared at the small, stitched doll, her mind reeling as she tried to comprehend Naoko's words about it being hidden in her underwear. Naoko, oblivious to Harumi-san's discomfort, leaned in with a bright smile, asking if she found the doll cute. Harumi-san could only manage a stunned, questioning sound. She then gently held the doll, explaining that she and Naokon were always together, implying the doll symbolized their bond. Naokon sat nearby, seemingly engrossed in his game. Harumi-san, now holding the doll herself, felt a shiver of unease as Naoko's intense gaze fixed on her, asking if she wouldn't interfere. Below, Naoko watched her intently, while Naokon remained focused on his game, seemingly unaware of the strange undercurrents. Moments later, Naokon, having finished his game, cheerfully announced his return, interrupting the tense atmosphere. Harumi-san and Naoko turned to him, their expressions shifting. Naoko, now holding a piece of paper, seemed to have forgotten the doll, asking Naokon if he wanted to play with her again. Harumi-san watched her, a lingering question in her eyes about the doll. Naokon readily agreed, eager to continue playing. As the afternoon drew to a close, Harumi-san and Naokon prepared to leave, thanking Naoko for the fun. Naoko, smiling, invited them to play again soon, specifically addressing Naokon. Naoko waved goodbye from the doorway as Harumi-san and Naokon exited. Harumi-san glanced back, a complex expression on her face, before continuing on. As they walked away, Harumi-san, still visibly troubled, turned to Naokon, attempting to speak his name, but her thoughts seemed to weigh heavily on her. Naokon and another boy stand in a doorway, both looking surprised. Naokon asks what is happening, while the other boy echoes his confusion. From the shadows, Naoko watches them, a faint smile playing on her lips. She then appeared more fully, holding her doll close, a wide smile on her face. The other boy, however, seemed deeply unsettled by her presence, sweating profusely as he muttered that there was nothing wrong, yet internally acknowledging that that person was strange. As she stood in the doorway, her smile remained, but her words carried a possessive undertone. She addressed Naokon, stating that while it was acceptable for him to be friends with others, she was the most important person in his life. She clutched the doll tightly to her chest, her gaze fixed on it with an unsettling intensity. A young girl with short, light-colored hair, standing outside a building, called out, "Shiyuta." Inside a classroom, a smaller child, a girl with a backpack, turned to Shiyuta and asked if his older sister was coming to play again today, mentioning that she had said it was okay. Shiyuta looked back at her, surprised. Moments later, Shiyuta stood before the light-haired girl, who now held a small doll. She playfully told him not to bother her, suggesting that today was not the day. He seemed to accept this, agreeing to meet again another time, while a dark-haired boy nearby looked on with a hint of surprise. As Shiyuta walked away from the building, a thoughtful expression on his face, he mused that something felt different from usual. The light-haired girl followed behind him, equally pensive, wondering if anything had happened yesterday. He continued his walk, his gaze fixed forward, while beside him, the image of a cheerful, dark-haired girl with a bright smile appeared, as if a memory or a thought. Still walking alone, should his thoughts drifted, unable to comprehend the situation. He recalled the dark-haired girl and the other boys sitting together, sharing a meal. Meanwhile, the light-haired girl walked with her backpack, a heavy sigh escaping her lips. She pondered how Naoto had changed, finding it strange. Her thoughts grew more frantic as images of the dark-haired girl and the dark-haired boy, along with a shadowy, unsettling figure, flashed through her mind. She felt the lingering presence of yesterday's events still weighing on her. Overwhelmed, she walked away, her mind racing with too many things, feeling as though her head might explode. Behind her, Shiyuta stood, looking stressed, wondering if she was truly all right. She stood by a wall, her expression a mix of frustration and annoyance. As Shiyuta ascended a nearby metal staircase, his footsteps echoed. She stood, her gaze distant, grappling with internal turmoil. Why would someone run away like that? The words echoed in her mind, too painful to fully comprehend, leaving her with a sense of profound unease. Moments later, she peered cautiously from behind a wall, observing a girl with a ponytail who seemed to be searching for someone, her head tilted in a questioning manner. As the girl walked away, looking dejected, she continued to watch, wondering if the search had been for her. Yet, she quickly dismissed the thought, a memory surfacing of how blatantly obvious something had been just yesterday. She remained hidden, her expression shifting from cautious observation to a thoughtful, almost pained contemplation. Meanwhile, the girl with the ponytail, Harumi, cheerfully greeted another girl, Akari, who smiled warmly in return. Unnoticed, she quietly walked away in the background. Akari and Harumi then faced each other, a quiet moment passing between them as they exchanged glances. Akari broke the silence, asking Harumi if she wasn't with Naoto today, and suggesting they should talk. Harumi, however, avoided her gaze, looking down in apparent discomfort. Akari continued to observe Harumi's downcast expression, wondering internally if the two had perhaps had a fight. Distant figures could be seen on a staircase in the background. With a bright smile, Akari then offered a solution, inviting Harumi to come play at her house. Harumi looked up, her face showing surprise at the unexpected invitation. Later, the two girls sat comfortably on a couch, engrossed in handheld games. Harumi exclaimed that her level had significantly increased since yesterday, while Akari playfully lamented her own defeat. She concentrated intently on her handheld game, her brow furrowed in focus. Beside her, Akari watched, suggesting that it might be better not to interfere halfway through. Harumi continued to play, her expression a mix of determination and slight frustration. Suddenly, Akari called her name, asking if she was indeed Harumi. Akari then leaned in, her voice dropping as she asked if Harumi had perhaps gotten into a fight with Naoto. Harumi's eyes widened in surprise, and she quickly denied it. Akari explained that Naoto could be quite intimidating when his older sister was around. She then inquired if Harumi had played with everyone recently, to which Harumi quietly affirmed. Akari nodded in understanding, agreeing that Naoto possessed a unique, almost fairy-like charm. Harumi concurred, a small smile playing on her lips. She continued, describing Naoto as incredibly kind, yet possessing a subtle, dangerous aura. Akari mused that perhaps she wasn't the best match for him, and Harumi again agreed with a thoughtful expression. Akari then characterized Naoto as easily deceived and naive, wondering aloud why he was so conscious of such a pure and innocent quality. Her attention shifted, and Akari wondered if children nowadays only played games, or if many also spent time at the mall or just wandered around. Outside, Shiyuta, boy_C, and girl_B walked past a shop, seemingly engaged in their own activities. Akari then noticed Shiyuta, asking him if he had gotten his ears pierced after summer vacation. He confirmed it with a confident smile, much to Akari's surprise, who exclaimed about him doing so while still in elementary school. She pressed further, asking if the teachers hadn't warned him about it. Shiyuta replied that he hadn't received any particular warnings, prompting Akari to ponder aloud about piercings. She observed Harumi, noting the new piercing in her ear. Akari remarked that it suited Harumi wonderfully. Harumi, surprised by the compliment, touched her ear and thanked Akari, who then added that even simple piercings suited her well, showing good taste. Harumi, now emboldened, confessed that she also wanted to get a piercing. Akari, however, questioned her, reminding her that she was still only an elementary school student and perhaps too young. As the conversation continued, Shiyuta, sitting nearby, casually interjected that he had already gotten his ears pierced. Akari, taken aback, exclaimed in disbelief. He confirmed his statement, prompting Harumi to ask if his mother had given him permission. Harumi pondered the idea, wondering if her own mother would approve, and considered how her other friends might react to the idea of getting piercings. Suddenly, Akari, with a bright smile, suggested that she and Harumi get matching piercings. The suggestion hung in the air, a moment of surprise passing between them. Akari reiterated her proposal, asking if Harumi would truly consider getting matching piercings with her. Harumi remained silent, seemingly lost in thought. Harumi, looking at Akari with a hint of concern, asked her to reconsider the idea. Akari, however, met her gaze with a determined expression. Akari, her expression bright with enthusiasm, held the other's hand, confirming her promise. She declared that once they opened the new piercings, they would get matching ones. Meanwhile, Harumi stood silently as Shiyuta, clearly agitated, demanded to know if she had called someone again. He complained about the persistent mess, questioning why he was always left to deal with it, implying she had ample time to clean. Akari's cheerful demeanor faltered as a sudden realization dawned on her. Her eyes widened slightly, and a bead of sweat formed on her temple as she touched her ear, where her own piercing resided. Across the room, Shiyuta stood, his back to the viewer, as a small, ornate piercing lay on the floor. Harumi's internal thoughts echoed her belief that such a flashy piercing did not suit her. He then confronted Harumi, holding up the dropped piercing and asking if it belonged to her. She quickly denied it, insisting it was not hers and certainly not her style. With a chillingly wide smile, she then suggested the piercing must belong to his friend, deflecting the accusation entirely. Shiyuta stared back, his face a mask of shock and disbelief. He recoiled, his voice rising in a desperate plea, reminding her of his previous warnings. Harumi, however, merely clutched her chest, her unsettling smile unwavering. As the dropped piercing remained on the floor, a silent testament to the escalating tension. The family gathered around the dinner table, a simple meal laid out before them. Harumi, with her light hair tied back, ate diligently, while the others, including Shiyuta, girl_B, boy_C, and Akari, also enjoyed their food. Woman_ served them, ensuring everyone had enough. As they ate, Harumi began to speak, mentioning that someone in her class had gotten piercings. Shiyuta listened intently, his expression curious, while girl_B also paid attention to the conversation. She continued, her voice filled with a mix of excitement and longing, declaring that she wanted to get piercings herself. Shiyuta, still listening, seemed taken aback by her sudden declaration. Moments later, boy_C grumbled about having to eat his carrots, expressing his dislike. Then, Shiuda, perhaps inspired by Harumi's words, turned to woman_A and asked if he could get a piercing too, catching her off guard. Later that evening, Harumi sat at a desk, sketching with a determined, yet hopeful expression, her thoughts clearly consumed by the idea of piercings. In the background, girl_B rested on the lower bunk of a bed. She carefully counted a pile of coins, her brow furrowed in concentration, seemingly calculating if she had enough. Afterward, she lay in bed, still clutching some of the coins, her mind clearly set on her goal. A close-up revealed her profile, her eyes wide and resolute, a clear sign of her unwavering determination. Her gaze was fixed on a small, packaged item labeled piercer, which appeared to be a piercing tool. The next day, Harumi, along with Shoyuda, girl_B, boy_C, girl_D, Akari, and Naoto, found themselves in a store, browsing the various aisles. Harumi, carrying a backpack, scanned the shelves with purpose. She approached the checkout counter, placing the piercing tool before woman_A, who was now working as a store clerk. Woman_A looked at Harumi with a questioning expression, recognizing the item. She stood before her mother at the checkout, presenting the piercing tool. Her mother, recognizing the item, asked if it was for her. Harumi's eyes widened in surprise, a bead of sweat forming on her brow as she was caught off guard. Flustered by the encounter, she quickly left the store, clutching the piercing tool and a small bag, her face flushed with embarrassment. Later, she sat alone on a set of outdoor stairs, attempting to decipher the instructions for the piercing tool. She found the diagrams confusing, muttering to herself that she couldn't understand them. With a nervous resolve, she positioned the tool against her earlobe, her brow furrowed in concentration. She thought about getting matching piercings, a determined glint in her eye despite the visible apprehension. The pain proved too much, and she flinched, unable to go through with it. She realized it was impossible for her to do it herself. Just then, Shoyuda appeared at the bottom of the stairs, calling out her name. As she sat there, Shoyuda and Akari approached her. Akari, with a concerned expression, questioned why Harumi was trying to pierce her ears in such an inappropriate place. Harumi stammered, clearly flustered by their sudden appearance and the situation. She explained that she couldn't do it at home because her younger siblings were always around. Akari then suggested that it might be better to ask her mother for help, leaving Harumi in thoughtful silence. Her expression shifted from contemplation to a look of surprise and hesitation at the idea of her mother performing the piercing. Akari then offered to do it for her, holding the piercing tool. Harumi's eyes widened in shock, but then a hopeful smile spread across her face as she eagerly agreed, asking Akari to proceed. With Harumi's consent, Akari carefully prepared to pierce her ear, holding the tool steady. Harumi looked nervous but determined, while Shoyuda watched the scene intently. She carefully positioned the piercing tool, and with a quick, sharp motion, pierced Harumi's ear. Harumi winced, a gasp escaping her lips, while Shoyuda looked on with wide, surprised eyes. She immediately apologized for the pain, but Harumi, though still wincing slightly, assured her it was perfectly fine, a small earring now visible in her lobe. She then proudly displayed the newly pierced ear, asking Harumi if she liked it. Harumi looked at her reflection, a faint blush on her cheeks, acknowledging the new adornment. She leaned in, gently touching Harumi's hand, and praised her for being so brave, truly impressed by her friend's resolve. Her ears still throbbed, a testament to the recent piercing, but a sense of accomplishment began to replace the discomfort. She then offered Harumi a present for her bravery, a small token to commemorate the occasion. Harumi, still a little shy, accepted the gesture. Later, Akari found herself in a bustling store, browsing the various displays, while a woman worked diligently at the counter. She tried on a pair of glasses, musing that they made her look as if she were on a date. Yet, she quickly reminded herself that her true purpose for being there was something entirely different. Her attention was drawn to her phone, where an image of a smiling couple filled the screen, their faces obscured, but their joyful interaction clear. She then lifted her gaze, comparing the image on her phone to a real couple standing nearby, their features strikingly similar to those on the screen, a thoughtful expression settling on her face. A young girl, surrounded by scattered photographs, stared with a pained expression. The images depicted scenes of luxury and social gatherings, yet her internal thoughts betrayed a deep sense of abandonment. She lamented how easily she had been cast aside, feeling utterly looked down upon. Later, as the first light of dawn began to filter through, she slowly rose from her bed, her movements heavy with exhaustion. Beside her, a boy remained deeply asleep, oblivious to her quiet awakening. Still in bed, she picked up a phone, its screen displaying the early hour of 3:45 a.m. As she navigated through its interface, a realization dawned on her. The device had no password set, leaving its contents completely exposed. She began to scroll through messages, her eyes widening as she read a conversation discussing a desired bag. One message questioned the expense, asking why it wouldn't be bought for a subordinate. The reply dismissed the idea, stating it would be a waste as the girl would simply discard it. Another message followed, disparaging that kind of girl. Simultaneously, the phone began syncing data and receiving a flurry of notifications. A chilling smile slowly spread across her face as she processed the words. She mused internally about the strange feeling this discovery evoked, deciding she should capture a screenshot for future reference. Her expression twisted into something truly sinister as she declared the situation to be so much fun. The next morning, a boy with a backpack called out from a doorway, his voice echoing slightly. He watched as another boy departed, then turned his attention to the girl. He approached her, asking if she would go with him. She remained unresponsive, her back partially turned. He looked at her with a puzzled expression, wondering what was wrong. Suddenly, a look of understanding dawned on him. He exclaimed that he finally got it, realizing something about her was different. He then directly asked her if she had changed her hairstyle, wondering why she had done so abruptly. She replied that there was no particular reason, though she internally considered her new, more open style to be a bit uncool. Meanwhile, from a balcony above, a woman with short, dark hair watched thoughtfully as the two children walked away, disappearing into the distance. A student's hand meticulously writes in a notebook, while in the classroom, a teacher's voice explains that something is natural. Girl underscore sits at her desk, looking thoughtful, while Shuta sits nearby, seemingly focused on his own work. Later, girl underscore A and Harumi engage in a conversation. Harumi suggests that it would be better to buy something after opening both, then asks for a present, claiming she worked hard this time. Girl underscore A listens intently to her friend's words. Back in class, the teacher suddenly calls out to Ida-san, asking her to answer a question. Girl underscore A, startled by the unexpected call, stands up from her desk, her expression one of surprise. Later, girl underscore A stands by a window, gazing out, lost in thought. Meanwhile, in a bustling hallway, Shuta walks past a mail carrier who is holding a stack of envelopes. A phone screen displays multiple folders, each with a number indicating its contents, suggesting a deeper investigation into digital messages. The focus shifts to Harumi as she arrives home, opening her door. Girl underscore A, still preoccupied, thinks about how she hasn't seen Harumi in a while. A phone on a table vibrates, displaying an incoming message. Inside her home, Harumi receives a call. The voice on the other end aggressively questions if she has been talking to someone named Naoto, and if she has been revealing information. The caller demands to know Harumi's intentions, accusing her of being a bad girl manipulated by a man, and insists she contact them immediately to discuss the matter. Harumi, visibly distressed, drops the phone, overturning a small table in her shock and anger. The confrontation escalates as a boy, his face contorted in anger, confronts Harumi. He accuses her of sending things to his company and home, declaring emphatically that he will not apologize for his actions. Harumi, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and shock, tells him that they should break up. Enraged by her words, the boy violently grabs Harumi's arm, demanding if she is serious. He then shoves her forcefully, sending her reeling. Harumi falls to the floor, crying, as the boy stands menacingly over her. He then leans down, grabbing her face, and tells her that he will do as she says, but warns her that she had better apologize and act like a good child. Harumi, still reeling from the previous confrontation, found herself trapped beneath a figure whose face was contorted in a grotesque, triumphant grin. He declared he would make her exactly as he desired. He continued his assault, his hands tearing at her clothes as she cried out in desperation, pleading for him to stop. He dismissed her pleas, demanding she act like an adult. His voice rose to a furious roar, rejecting her completely, stating he wanted nothing to do with her or any child of hers. She lay on the floor, her body trembling, utterly helpless. He silenced her cries by seizing her throat, his grip tightening as her eyes widened in terror and her breath hitched. Her struggles grew weaker under his relentless pressure. The assault continued relentlessly, his body pressing down on hers, forcing her into submission. She could only whimper, her face contorted in pain and despair. He continued to violate her, her body pinned beneath his, her face streaked with tears and dirt. She stared blankly, her spirit seemingly broken by the ordeal. The brutal act persisted, his movements sharp and violent. She felt a profound sense of revulsion, a deep, sickening feeling washing over her as she endured the torment. Her face, bruised and tear-stained, reflected pure terror and agony. Her body, exposed and vulnerable, bore the marks of the horrific ordeal she had just suffered. Finally, she lay motionless on the floor, her body limp and unresponsive, a silent testament to the violence she had endured. The room was quiet, save for the lingering echoes of her suffering. Girl Undersur watched in horror as Harumi ran away, her face contorted in distress. She called out to her, a desperate plea escaping her lips. Girl _ confronted Harumi, who turned back with a pained expression, offering an apology. She explained that she could not keep her promise for a while, but assured Girl _ she would eventually return. Girl _ reached out, pleading for Harumi to wait and explain what she meant, but Harumi continued to flee, leaving Girl _ distraught and confused. Weeks later, Girl _ sat at her school desk, diligently writing, but her thoughts were clearly elsewhere, reflecting on the significant time that had passed since Harumi's abrupt departure. Still lost and thought about Harumi's prolonged absence, Girl _ heard the doorbell ring. She opened the door to find Shuda standing there. Shuda was immediately confronted by a stern-faced man, who aggressively questioned him about Harumi's whereabouts. The man shoved Shuda, angrily denouncing Harumi as a violent woman, leaving Shuda stunned and reeling from the unexpected assault. Shuda fled the confrontation, looking back with a worried expression at Girl _ who observed the unsettling scene from a distance. Harumi reappeared, a small bandage on her cheek, a faint smile playing on her lips as she greeted someone, implying she had been waiting. She and Shuda walked through a bustling shopping mall, and Harumi suggested they go buy earrings. She held up a pair of earrings, asking Shoyuda for his opinion as they browsed the store. Her injured cheek was still bandaged, but her focus was on the small, decorative items. As she showed them to him, Harumi seemed excited by the various options, but Shoyuda pointed out that she only had one ear pierced, making it difficult to wear a matching pair. Her expression then shifted, and she mused aloud about getting the other ear pierced, only to quickly dismiss the idea, stating it was likely impossible for her. Despite her earlier words, she then turned to Shoyuda, placing a hand on his shoulder and telling him that he could still return. Shoyuda looked at her, puzzled by her cryptic statement. Moments later, Harumi approached a store clerk, requesting that the earrings be wrapped as a gift. Shoyuda watched her, still processing her earlier words. The clerk's hand carefully handled the package, questioning if it was truly only a single earring, as if expecting a pair. After the purchase, Shoyuda thanked her for the earrings as they walked out of the store, the new accessory now adorning her ear. She responded with a gentle smile, explaining that she was the one who wanted to buy them and that she actually wanted to thank him. Her voice gaining conviction, she explained that it was because of Shoyuda that she had found the courage she needed. As she began to walk away, Shoyuda called out, asking what was wrong, but Harumi simply stated she would stop there, leaving him behind once more. She, with a bandage on her cheek, firmly told him that she would not be returning to that place. Despite her words, she then stood with Shoyuda, holding her school bag, and confirmed that she only had errands to run today. As she prepared to leave, she turned back to Shoyuda, asking if he would truly return home properly. She then suggested they go shopping for matching earrings next time. Shoyuda seemed taken aback by her suggestion, apologizing and explaining that it was impossible for him. Harumi, holding one of her new, elaborate earrings, confessed that she had always liked flashy earrings. She leaned in close to Shoyuda, her face near his ear, which bore a piercing. With a soft expression, she whispered goodbye. She then walked away, looking back over her shoulder with a gentle smile and a wave, leaving Shoyuda behind. Shoyuda stood alone, his arms crossed, a troubled expression on his face as he watched her depart. Later, as the days passed, Shoyuda walked home from school with a classmate, who remarked that Christmas was approaching, though it was still over a month away. The classmate then questioned if Shoyuda still believed in Santa, adding that he was the only one who never received presents. Shoyuda continued walking with Naoto, who observed that the difference between them as brothers was too great. Naoto then urged Shoyuda to make sure he received a present this year, before asking if he had seen Harumi recently. He listened as Harumi, her back mostly to him, delivered a stark warning. He was never to speak of her again. He could only offer a quiet affirmation in response. Moments later, she stood alone in her room, her head bowed, a heavy feeling settling over her. Her backpack lay discarded on the floor, a testament to her distress. Her gaze fell upon a document tucked away in a drawer, its title clearly visible, Piercer. As she stared at the paper, a wave of profound sadness washed over her, her eyes welling up with unshed tears. The emotion became too much to bear, and she broke down, tears streaming freely down her face before she finally collapsed onto her desk, overwhelmed. She remained there, a small, hunched figure amidst her books, lost in her sorrow. A swirling vortex of despair seemed to consume her thoughts, a silent scream echoing within. Meanwhile, in a different part of the house, a woman stirred a bowl with a whisk, muttering to herself about the difficulties honest people faced. She then tasted her creation, a subtle, knowing smile playing on her lips as she reflected that if one were to undertake something, it should be done completely.